Testing. Okay. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Cool Beans Hot Stuff. Today is Conspiracy Theory Thursday, and that means we're going to go over a new conspiracy theory today, deep dive into it, and, well, I don't know about super deep dive, but get at least some understanding of what the conspiracy theory is about and what both sides of the argument are saying. And today I got a really juicy one. This one's definitely going to be the most controversial one I've done. And I'm pretty positive that it's not going to be on YouTube for that long because anytime I've looked into this and found videos on YouTube, they don't seem to last very long. They seem to be uber censored. And I don't know. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm a small enough channel where I don't catch a lot of flack for the things I do as of yet, you know? Eventually, the algorithm's going to come around and find me and put me in YouTube jail. But for now, I can kind of get away with doing some things. We'll see if this is the one that fucks me, though. We'll see. Because this is definitely a controversial one for sure. Anytime I've seen somebody looking at this, they're heavily censoring themselves. And I'm so new at this that the self censoring is something that I still suck at. So I don't even try. I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to wing it. I'm going to curse. I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about on this topic. And eventually, when YouTube comes around and tells me I need to act right and get my fucking shit together, then I'll be like, okay, fine. I'll say frickin' instead of fucking and do all your bullshit. But today, we're going to be cursing like madmen, and we're also going to be talking about adrenochrome. So, I don't know if any of you know what the adrenochrome conspiracy is. First off, if you're watching this live, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in, Cutie Pie. You're always there. I know you're there if nobody else is, so thank you for watching. And if you're checking this out on the YouTube videos, because I'm streaming live on YouTube, so if you're seeing it live on YouTube, welcome. Hope you enjoy the show. If you're checking out the video, welcome. I hope you enjoy the show and learn something new. And if you do, please leave a like and subscribe. If you feel offended by today's subject matter, then leave a comment and let me know why you're offended. So, okay, if you don't know what adrenochrome is, we're going to go into that. That's a whole part of what we're going to dive into. But the adrenochrome conspiracy is really where we're going to, that's what we're really going to focus on, obviously. And then I got a couple other conspiracies at the end of the video that are very similar to the adrenochrome conspiracy. And long story short, you have probably heard of some sort of conspiracy theory involving mostly Hollywood elites, but particularly very wealthy, powerful people, including politicians, people in Hollywood, right? Whatever, mostly Hollywood, that have some sort of child pornography, sex, abduction, torture ring, right? And there's multiple different variations of this conspiracy theory. Adrenochrome is one of them. And so that's what we're going to learn about today. We're going to cover that one. And then, in other videos, we may cover some of the other variations of that conspiracy. But it's a big conspiracy. It's been around since I was a kid. Since I was a kid, I think it wasn't as prominent, because the internet wasn't a thing when I was a kid, right? We got dial up internet, the old school big hunky ass computer that had to like make all the sounds before it would connect to anything. And then all you had was like one chat room, and you had like AOL. That was like the big thing. That all came out when I was in like middle school. So before then, there was no way for a lot of these conspiracy theories to really like hit the market. And so everybody was talking about them, or they could find their little niche on the internet. So it wasn't as prominent. It got way more prominent as I got into high school, though. As I got into high school, the adrenochrome conspiracy ended up becoming something that I heard about here, there, the other place. So nowadays it's a long running conspiracy, and all the variations of this child trafficking ring in Hollywood are a very long running conspiracy, right? And it's a juicy one. I decided I'm going to get into juicier conspiracy theories, ones that are more apt to get me kicked off or upset people because, you know, 9 years of working in the music industry, I think about the things that I learned. And one thing that I learned, is the more divisive something is, the more people pay attention to it, the more eyes it gets, right? That's why you get like divisive politics, right? You get like far right and far left political pundits who really push over the boundaries of what is acceptable, right? They're trying to be very, very edgy because that kind of edginess, that pushing the boundaries, that pissing people off, that upsetting the other side seems to really garner a lot of attention, and not only do you bring in the people who agree with you and the people who kind of agree with you, they use you as a proxy, like, well, I agree with them. I'm just not as fucking crazy as he is. They can kind of feel better about themselves and can be like, yeah, I'm super right wing or I'm super left wing, but I'm not that left wing or right wing. But I do love his show. And then you bring in the people who want to hate watch you, who get in the comments and say, you're a piece of shit for believing this, go die, yeah, and freak out. And that brings in a lot more views versus what I do, like on my Wildlife Wednesdays, where I just kind of chill and I talk about animals. Animals aren't divisive. Nobody comes into my channel to to hate watch me. No one's gonna hate watch me because I'm making a fucking video about dinosaurs. You know what I'm saying? And nobody comes in because they use me as a proxy for their extremism or anything. Nobody's coming in to be like, well, I love dinosaurs, but I'm not as extreme as this guy. They don't feel better in relation to me the way they do with some political channels. And nobody's really tuning in because they agree with me. I suppose somebody's tuning in. Actually, when it came to the dinosaur video, nobody tuned in. So it turns out I'm like the one lone motherfucker on YouTube who loves dinosaurs. Or there's so few of us that nobody's found me yet. But I have faith in my fellow dinosaur lovers. They'll find my awesome video at some point. But so nobody's tuning in though to bitch about the guy or agree with the guy or use as a proxy the guy who talks about animals and dinosaurs and waterfalls and teddy bears and shit. Even doing like some of the scary stuff, none of that is divisive. You know what I mean? So I was like, well, I could switch over those Wednesdays. That's something I'm going to be doing on this channel. We only have 2 more Wildlife Wednesdays. And then Wednesdays is going to be, I think I'm calling it my World Event Wednesdays, is what I'm going to call it. And I'm going to go over some event in the world and not be divisive about it. I'm not going to try to get in here and make like divisive far left or far right claims, but just looking into it to learn more about world politics, right? And I honestly feel like in that area, you can just be really in the middle and piss everybody off anyhow. I feel like that's a very valid way to be divisive, is to just be as, what's the word, as objective as possible, as neutral as possible. That seems to piss everybody off, right? And but so then on Thursdays, I was like, well, I could do some more divisive conspiracy theories, ones that really get people's goats. So my first foray into this kind of more controversial conspiracies is adrenochrome. So let's dive in and let's read about it. Okay, so what is adrenochrome? Uses effects conspiracy theory about blood harvesting explained. Okay, this article is only a couple of years old, so this will give us a good rundown of where we're sitting more or less with this conspiracy. So what is adrenochrome? That's probably important to note first, right? Adrenochrome is an unstable chemical compound with chemical formula C9H9 nitrous oxide 3. The oxidation of epinephrine forms it. Its name is derived from the terms adrenaline, which alludes to its source, and chrome, which indicates its color, violet. So it's violet adrenaline, or that's where the name comes, adrenochrome. It is in its unstable state, adrenochrome is not very useful, but when it binds to monosemicarbazone, monosemicarbazone. Ooh, that's a big one. We're going to have a few of those medical terms today that I'm going to have to run through, but we'll get there. Monosemicarbazone, it stabilizes and forms carbazochrome, which is adrenochrome monosemicarbazone, which aids in blood coagulation. So when it binds to monosemicarbazone, it aids in blood coagulation. Those studies in carbazochrome, carbozochrome's efficiency and treating hemorrhage are still lacking. It is occasionally utilized in this capacity. Abrahm Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond, two Canadian psychiatrists, hypothesized that schizophrenia might be brought on by a substance related to adrenaline based on structural similarities between adrenaline and mescaline in the 1950s after observing similarities between schizophrenia symptoms and the effects of the hallucinogen mescaline. A contender for their quest for a naturally occurring substance that causes schizophrenia symptoms was adrenochrome, according to Hoffer and Osmond. They asserted that adrenochrome might indeed cause hallucinations after conducting their tests on themselves. The observation served as the basis for Hoffer and Osmond's so-called adrenochrome hypothesis, which proposed that schizophrenia is brought on by an overabundance of the antioxidant adrenochrome in the body and could thus be treated with massive antioxidant doses. Okay, so adrenochrome is a form of adrenaline. It is adrenaline when epinephrine. It is oxidation of epinephrine. Epinephrine is adrenaline outside of your body. Okay, like an EpiPen is a pen full of epinephrine. Okay, epinephrine oxidizes, becomes adrenochrome. And when you combine adrenochrome with monosemicarbazone, it creates carbazochrome. Carbazochrome. That's how you say it. Carbazochrome. Oof. We don't need to remember any of these words, so it's not really that important. Carbazochrome is used to treat hemorrhages because it aids in blood coagulation, stopping the blood, stopping a wound from bleeding, right? Okay, we're going to learn more about Hoffer and Osmond later on in the stream. It is true that these two scientists studied adrenochrome and thought that perhaps adrenochrome, like LSD and mescaline, is a hallucinogen, a psychedelic drug, right? And over here, they say that they used it on themselves, and that's how they asserted that adrenochrome might indeed cause hallucinations after conducting their tests on themselves. We're going to actually look at that study and see what they came to. We can't look at the whole study because it's behind a paywall, but we can at least go through the abstract and they can give us a rough idea of what they found, okay, back in the 1950s. So that's what adrenochrome supposedly is. It is a hallucinogen, potential hallucinogen, according to these fellers. And outside of that, it's used as a blood coagulant. Okay. One study examined the effects of adrenochrome on the human arterial endothelial cell in vitro. They exposed the cells to either adrenochrome or epinephrine at levels of 50 and 200 micro-M. I don't know what micro-M is, respectively, up to 24 hours. Measurements were made, okay, after the planned harvesting time, yada, yada, yada. They discovered that adrenochrome at a level of 200 micro-M inhibited thiamidine incorporation, decreased protein content, accelerated cholesterol uptake, and reduced prostacyclin synthesis compared with control. However, it took 24 hours for 200 micromilligrams of epinephrine to stop thiamidine incorporation. Why? I don't know why it's giving us this, because it's not telling us what the fuck any of that means. So just disregard all that, since it doesn't tell us if that's important at all. So-called adrenochrome harvesting has been a popular subject. So here we go. Here's the conspiracy. So that's adrenochrome. That's more or less what people say it does. Everything that it's saying here, I don't understand any of that, and it's not going to explain it to us. That's bad journalism, Science Times. You need to tell me what the fuck you're saying with all your little science words. So, adrenochrome blood harvesting conspiracy theory. So-called adrenochrome harvesting has been a popular subject of the related QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy communities for a very long time. Conspiracy theory is an effective illustration of hidden virality and how marginalized cultures fuel social media platforms in ways that are not visible to the general public. This is very interesting. So we're going to get back into this little bit of tidbit here. And actually, we might go ahead and compare it now. So this is popular. Well, we'll dive into this in a little bit. I'm going to come back to this little bit right here. But yes, so according to Science Times, this is a QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy theory. This conspiracy theory is an effective illustration of what they call hidden virality, which is how marginalized communities fuel social media platforms in ways that are not visible to the general public. Essentially, there are hidden virality is there are, well, like conspiracy theories, ideas, movements on the internet that are hidden from public eye, which is kind of a bit of a paradox that it can be hidden from the public and yet it's still going viral. But it is a thing. There's small niches of people. It makes sense to me, anyways. It's a hypothesis. We're going to get into the hypothesis a little bit later, the hidden virality hypothesis. But the hypothesis makes sense to me. There is groups of people online, that niches of people, you can say a niche of people that are interested in very specific things, and there might not be a large percentage of them, but that small percentage of an otherwise large population is still a fuck ton of people. And those people sharing things to other people who might be more open minded to whatever it is that they're saying can lead to a post going viral without the general public really knowing that it's going viral or that it's a thing, right? This happens to everybody to some extent. You ever had a friend show you a video and saying, "Oh, this is going viral," and you're like, "I've never heard of it. I don't even know what this is." But then you look into it and you're like, "Oh, wow, holy shit, I guess this is a thing that like everybody's doing," right? That happens. The opposite happens too, though. That's an important aspect of this too. There's a lot of people who will say, "Oh man, this is going crazy on the internet," and then you look it up and it's like 2 YouTube channels talking about it. You know, those 2 YouTube channels might just have a lot of like subscribers, but it isn't something big that's happening all over the internet. And it's not something happening in the world. This is a very common one too, where you'll get people who say, "Oh, yeah, everybody's in on this." And it's like, no, everybody online is talking about this. But in the real world, nobody knows what the fuck you're talking about, bro. Nobody has even heard of this. You hear this argument a lot, and I think to some extent it's correct with the whole culture war thing, right? Woke versus anti woke is only a thing really online. In the real world, most of the people you run into aren't having conversations about woke and anti woke. It's not really a thing. Yeah. So, in any case, we're going to continue. Conspiracy theories that work best are based on truthful premises. Beyond a few studies on its potential significance in schizophrenia in the middle of the 20th century, little scientific research has been done on adrenochrome. And we'll get into some of the pop culture references here in a little bit. What appears to be the earliest known posts about adrenochrome harvesting is on 4chan's X and poll boards in 2013 and 14. And an anonymous poster posted a link to a restricted, unsearchable video titled "Jew Ritual Blood Libel Sacrifice is Adrenochrome Harvesting" in an anti-Semitic 4chan forum. So this is where Science Times said, "Yep, this is where it popped up." Adrenochrome harvesting, the conspiracy theory. First mention of it, first post mentioning it, that is important to know, is this anti-Semitic, which, calling something a Jew ritual, that's pretty anti-Semitic. This, and it's an unsearchable video. I don't know what that means. A restricted, unsearchable video on 4chan, which, it's 4chan. That's probably like one of the nicest things anybody's ever said about anybody else on 4chan. Additionally, QAnon followers claim that elites in Hollywood and Washington operate a covert child sex trafficking ring and gather child blood. The anti-aging chemical adrenochrome is then extracted, according to the conspiracy idea, by elites to preserve their youth. That assertion is unfounded. The conspiracy notion, however, was fueled by a new TikTok video that has comedians Whitney Cummings and Joe Rogan goofing about it. Joe Rogan's talking about it. This is where it comes from. I remember this conversation. During the conversation, Rogan asked Cummings if she did the baby blood, and the latter replied, "Yeah, the adrenochrome. I have a sprinkler." And then she pretends like she's spraying it over her face. She added that she just sprays it all over her face. Yeah. Cummings' rep later confirmed that she was joking during the conversation, and her statement was not a confession, giving validity to the outrageous conspiracy theory. Yeah, it was very clearly a joke. They were both just laughing about it. He was giving her shit, and she was, playing along. That's all it was. But that's the adrenochrome conspiracy theory. We are going to dive into this entire paragraph again a little bit later in the stream. And we're not even going to have to return to the Science Times in order to do that, which is interesting. First, I want to interject. They say here, earliest known posts about adrenochrome harvesting. Yes. Okay, fair enough. Way before there was ever a 4chan, there was the adrenochrome conspiracy. Adrenochrome conspiracy is long before the internet was a thing, okay? The Adrenochrome conspiracy, first time I heard about it, was in one of my favorite movies of all time, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's Benicio del Toro there, and that is Johnny Depp portraying Hunter S. Thompson. I'm a huge fan of Hunter S. Thompson's writing. I have almost every single one of his books. He has another book, and I forget which one it is because it's been a while. It's either Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail or perhaps The Great Shark Hunt, where he talks about adrenochrome very briefly again. But anyways, this is E-Bombs World. I don't know if anybody remembers E-Bombs World from back in the day, like the early internet. E-Bombs World always had games, funny videos, all kinds of naughty, raunchy shit. I'm sure that's what spicy over here is, pornographic material. That was always a good time when you were in middle school and you first discovered the computer. Every young boy's, one of their first 5 places they visited was E-Bombs World. You can get your funny videos, play your games, and watch porn all at the same time. So here we go again down the rabbit hole, following the little breadcrumbs of shit posts, seeing where they go. Well, this time we've got ourselves something special. A tale of grand conspiracy, a story about a little drug called adrenochrome. So adrenochrome is a chemical compound, yada, 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 oxidation of epinephrine. In addition to blood clotting, adrenochrome has been tested for its psychological effects. We already know this. So, adrenochrome has been referenced numerous times in essays, novels, and films. Most notably by Hunter S. Thompson in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, who we assume got it from Aldous Huxley. I don't know, ever remember Aldo. That's it, Aldo Huxley. I'm not 100% sure on that. Pretty sure you pronounce that Aldo Huxley. But anyways, Huxley wrote The Brave New World. But he also, in his essay titled The Doors of Perception, referenced the drug adrenochrome in 1954. Okay, now that doesn't mean there was a conspiracy in 1954. In 1950s, that's when people were looking at adrenochrome to see what it could potentially be, right? We already learned that's where Mr. I want to keep calling him Hoffa, like Jimmy Hoffa, but that's not his name. Abrahm Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond, Canadian psychiatrists, in the 1950s, that's when they started observing adrenochrome. Okay, so that's probably where Aldous Huxley, Aldo Huxley, whatever. Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. It's about time I learned these things. I'm a big boy now. I should be looking this up. Pronunciation. I should probably learn how to spell pronunciation first. This has nothing to do with anything. I just really want to know how to pronounce this guy's name.
At Wayfair, we get pretty excited about furniture. Around here, it's not a
patio. Because I do like Brave New World. Brave New World is a good book.
We are looking at how to pronounce the name of this English writer, novelist, philosopher, as well as how to say more names from literature that are confusing. Aldous. So some say it more as Aldous, others more as Aldous. Aldous or Aldous or
Aldous. Or Aldous. Okay, so it is Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley. Okay, we're going to go with that. I know I've heard it before, but it's hard to remember these things. Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley. Okay. Odd name. Oddball name. So he just called himself Tony. It's easy to remember. So, Huxley's essay is about his experience with mescaline, but he does write about adrenochrome not having done it, but rather as something he'd like to obtain. While Thomas explicitly references the drug in his novels, though unlike Huxley's essay, Thomas's novel is fictionalized, though based on real events, is not considered reliable. No, for sure. It isn't. If you remember the movie, it was in his book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Here it is in the movie, Fear and Loathing. It's a good scene, good movie. If you haven't watched this movie, let me introduce you to it. One of Johnny Depp's best classic roles. Check it out.
Tell 1600, please. As your attorney, I advise you to take a hit out of the little brown bottle in my shaving kit. You won't need much. Just a tiny taste.
What's that? Ah, there it is. What is this?
That stuff makes pure mescaline seem like ginger beer, man.
Ginger beer. I love that. I don't like the censoring of the word shit. It's like beep. It's like, oh, come on. But make like ginger beer, man.
Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome?
Hello? Hi, Lucy. God bless. Yeah, it's me. What? Hell no. I taught the a lesson he'll never forget. What? No, not dead. But he won't be bothering anybody for a while. Yeah, I left him out there. I stomped him and pulled all his teeth out.
I remember thinking, Jesus, what a terrible thing to lay on somebody with a head full of acid.
But we have a problem. That cashed a bad check downstairs and gave you as a reference. They'll be looking for both of you. Yeah, I know, Lucy, but you can't judge a book by its cover. Some people are just basically rotten. Anyway, the last thing in the world you want to do is call this hotel again. They'll trace the call and put you straight behind bars. No, I'm moving to the Tropicana right away. I'll let you know what it is, and, I gotta get off. Well, you have this phone tap, baby. Yeah, I know, it's horrible, but it's all over now. Oh, my God. There's someone at the door. There's someone at the door. Hey! Hey! No! I'm innocent! It was Duke! It was Duke! Well, that's that. That's the last we should be hearing from Lucy, man. She's probably stuffing herself down the incinerator about now. You know what we need? We need some opium.
All right. If you've never seen that movie, you're probably watching that like, what the fuck was that all about? Poor Lucy. Geesh. You can see him in there frying on the adrenochrome. They don't continue the scene in the movie. Here, let me pop back over here. In the movie, he ends up, Johnny Depp, ends up frying really, really hard off of it and freaking out. And Benicio del Toro's like, oh, you took too much, man. You took too much. And he definitely takes too much and fries really hard on it. But that's the reference of adrenochrome in the movie, right? Super hardcore hallucinogen. Unfortunately, because they don't play the rest of the scene, we don't hear Benicio del Toro talking about how he gets the adrenochrome while Johnny Depp is frying. Benicio del Toro informs him. He asks him, like, oh my God, this stuff's good. Where did you get this? And Benicio del Toro is like, oh, they have to torture a young girl and scare her until she fills with adrenaline. Then they have to cut out her adrenal glands and drain them. And that's how you get adrenochrome. And then it's hearing that fucks up Johnny Depp's trip and sends him in a really bad trip. So, which that probably would do it. If you were on acid and then somebody told you that, it would probably fuck you up pretty good. So, that's the first time I ever heard of adrenochrome, right? From the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And that was hold on, got a cough. I was going to say 1994, 95, 98. Okay, I was way off. 1998. So 1998 was the first reference of adrenochrome being, in movies. That was the biggest reference anyways. It wasn't the first. If we pop back over here, there's another reference to it in popular culture, but that was a big one. That was the first one that I saw when I was a kid, right? And that it does, I guess that particular reference, not Aldous Huxley, but Hunter S. Thompson's reference, absolutely references the conspiracy theory. They didn't have that in the little clip, but again, it's Benicio del Toro telling Johnny Depp, hey, this is how they get adrenochrome. They have to torture a young girl and get the adrenaline and then take her glands out. And that's a conspiracy theory that elites are doing this to get the adrenochrome. Right? Okay. And then if we go back to the Science Times, they asserted that, oh, here we go. The conspiracy, eventually the adrenochrome is used to preserve youth. It isn't just used for hallucinogen anymore. Then the conspiracy theory evolves into, well, they're doing it because it keeps them youthful, right? It's a drug that stops the aging process. Yeah. Okay. But so, yeah, adrenochrome is a real chemical compound. Whether used for blood clotting or having similarities to epinephrine, it has not been proven to cause euphoria. The difference between pure adrenaline, what you would find in an EpiPen, is much different than the body's natural adrenaline response, one that many people equate to euphoria. So, yeah, it is different. Now, this is where it gets weird, where the posts go sour and our stomachs turn, where numbers about missing children, old conspiracies about Clinton associates, and celebrity meltdowns come to meet. Adrenochrome isn't just some drug people are keen on acquiring. Adrenochrome is the drug. It's the big drug that everybody wants, especially the wealthy people, according to the conspiracy theory. The drug of choice for elite and ruling class, the elixir sought by our pedophile occult rulers who hide in the shadows, pulling the strings of global tyranny. The drug that makes the world go round. The drug that every celebrity in this club is currently on withdrawals from due to the global slowdown over coronavirus. Or at least that's what the theory says. And adrenochrome is currently involved in all of the great internet conspiracy theories, currently eating away at the brains of millions. We wish we had more to say, we really do. But what do you actually want? You want we to believe? But do you actually want me to believe Ellen DeGeneres or Courtney Cox are going through withdrawals from not getting their kitty adrenal drug? That's just stupid. Botox and Adderall make the celebrity machine go round. Everybody knows that. Which are both things that are in shorter supply than brain cells it takes to see adrenochrome for what it really is, a meme. Speaking of which, here are some adrenochrome memes. Don't say I never gave you nothing. See, at least they give us the memes, right? Because the memes are kind of fun to look at. Here is, yeah, I don't know why I'm coughing all of a sudden. Let's open this up here so we can take a closer look. So, Google's most recent release, September 2008, is named Chrome, Google Chrome from Adrenochrome. If you take this Google symbol, it looks like sixes wrapped around, 666. Uh-oh, that's no good. Google's GPU released in 2009 is named the Adreno 630. The Adreno GPU Chrome. Uh-oh. Here we go. See, Google's in on it. They're in on the Adrenochrome. And then there's a really poor, unfortunate picture of poor Courtney Cox without her adrenochrome, supposedly. So here's another meme from it. An immortality serum obtained from the adrenal glands of living children after they have been terrorized to get the highest levels of adrenaline. It has LSD-like qualities and is used in satanic rituals by monarchies, politicians, congressmen, celebrities, CEOs, and the elite. So that is, whether the elite, monarchies, all that stuff, isn't necessarily used for, or that isn't in the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas conspiracy that that Benicio del Toro has in that movie that he explains. It's just this first half. It doesn't really have the elites in there, but yeah, the idea that you have to get it from living children, that where I heard that was from the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas movie way back in the day. That was in middle school, I think, when I watched that. So, and then here is adrenochrome. They're the source B3 Scientific Wuhan Corp. So I don't know why they're highlighting that. Apparently, what do you call that? What's the I forget what they fucking call that. I'm blanking on it now. Damn it! You always blank on these words when you need them the most. Yeah, but apparently it looks like a white rabbit. So apparently adrenochrome, aka white rabbit, because it looks like a rabbit. I guess I'm not sure about that one, but there's a thing. And then there's a whole lot of these really odd and messed up paintings from back in the day. And there is a lot. It is very striking how many people made paintings of adults torturing what looks to be young children in very disturbing ways. So there's one of those. We're not going to dive too deep into that. But there's the memes, yeah? Okay, some of the memes or some of the things that people are sharing to say, look at this. This is what they're sharing on social media about the adrenochrome conspiracy, right? So originally, adrenochrome was this is a drug that you get from the human body. It's adrenaline oxidized or epinephrine that's oxidized, turns into adrenochrome. And when you take some, it can get you super duper messed up. You hallucinate. And then that you have to get it from torturing a child. That becomes like kind of the next variation of the conspiracy theory. And then the next variation of the conspiracy theory later on is that the elites are using it. The elites have a ring where they are torturing children to get the adrenochrome. And then the next variation of conspiracy, the final one that I can find that we're in now, is that adrenochrome is actually a youth serum that helps you maintain a youthful appearance, in addition to giving you a really awesome trip. And that is why the elites are torturing children for this drug. So there's all your conspiracy theories in a nutshell. I also thought this was a little entertaining. Another pop culture reference to adrenochrome was actually Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, which is a fucking awesome movie. Love this movie. It's really intense, but everybody's got to watch it at least once just because it's such a wild ass movie. But in the movie A Clockwork Orange, Alex and his droogs, these are his gang members here, drink Adrenochrome. And Adrenochrome, according to Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange, was milk mixed with adrenochrome. So they would drink it to have a good time. And Clockwork Orange, let's just look it up to make sure I got the right year that it came out and I didn't spell orange correctly. 1971. Wow, I was going to say like 1975, no, 76. I'm off on guessing my years that movies came out. But 1971. So there's another reference to adrenochrome, being a heavy hitter in the hallucinogen world. Again, the first reference everybody brings up, and every single article I've ever looked up is Aldous Huxley in Doors of Perception essay. He brings up adrenochrome as a hallucinogen that would be fun to try. And then we get it here in 1971. Alex from Clockwork Orange and his droogs are drinking adrenochrome. And then we get it back in 1998 with Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the book, and then the movie. The movie comes out in 1998. Book was before that, obviously, where he's taking adrenochrome. And then by this point, the conspiracy theory is you have to torture children until their adrenaline is all the way up and then take out their adrenal gland in order to get the adrenochrome. Which, for the record, wasn't there back in the 50s and 70s. That wasn't a part of it, as far as I can tell. And like I said, we're going to deep dive into the guys who actually did the studying. That'll actually be what we look up next. Will be the guys who deep dive into the adrenochrome studies to figure out what this thing actually does, right? I remember I keep calling him Hoffer. I think his name was Abrahm Hoffer. Is a scientist, a Canadian psychiatrist that looked into it. We're going to look into him and all the studies he did in the 1950s. And you'll notice that there's no mention of, we tortured children to get the adrenochrome. So anyway, yeah, adrenochrome's association with hallucinogens, Doors of Perception from Aldous Huxley, and Clockwork Orange had a cameo in Frank Herbert's Destination Void. Never seen that movie. What is this? A book? It's a book. Yes, paperback. Prequel to the Pandora Experience. Sequence. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what that is. I don't know any of that. But it's in there as well. So, perhaps the compound's greatest claim to fame, is Hunter S. Thompson. Yep. So, weird science and adrenochrome. And we're going to read a little bit more about Mr. Humphrey and Abrahm Hoffer. In the early 1950s, these two gentlemen began working under the assumption posed by some researchers at the time that schizophrenia may be triggered by an excess of adrenaline. This drew Osmond and Hoffer's attention to derivatives of adrenaline, especially adrenochrome. Hoffer then decided he experimented with the hormone, after which he claimed to have experienced schizophrenic symptoms, hallucinations, and delusions, and thus Osmond and Hoffer's adrenochrome hypothesis, linking schizophrenia to abnormal metabolism of adrenochrome, was born. It's important to note that around the same time, Osmond and Hoffer were also beginning to embark on new research investigating the potential therapeutic effects of drugs such as LSD and mescaline therapies that also had the potential to cause those so-called schizophrenic symptoms in otherwise healthy adults. Osmond would later coin the term psychedelics to refer to hallucinogens. Yeah, these dudes definitely had a big impact on the psychedelic world, for sure. They did a lot of studying into a lot of various psychedelics. I believe ibogaine was also on their list of psychedelics that they studied heavily in in order to, well, I guess figure out what the fuck they did. And it sounds like they had a lot of fun in their studies. Reflecting back on the adrenochrome hypothesis in an article published in 1990 in the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine, the researcher said, all we did know was that it was readily formed by oxidation of adrenaline to a red compound in solution. But we did suspect it might be a hallucinogen because it resembled a few known hallucinogens like, LSD and ibogaine. There you go. Adrenochrome psychedelic properties, however, never actually panned out, and as intriguing as those studies were, they have been largely discredited due to primarily methodological failures, and I think they were unable to ever replicate any of the initial findings that were popularized, Marino said. I do want to point out this sentence. I don't who's Marino? Where did Marino come in? Who's the Marino guy? I want to know who this is. Marino said, Dr. Ryan Marino. Adrenochrome, on the other hand, doesn't have any approved indications in the United States. Dr. Ryan Marino said when we talked to him in 2001, Marino is a medical toxologist, emergency physician, and assistant professor at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio. So according to this guy, it has been heavily debunked, discredited to methodological failures, and I think they're unable to ever replicate any of the initial findings. I did want to point out that in the previous article we read at Science Times, they said where is it? It says somewhere in here. Oh, I need a cough. They said it somewhere in here that it hasn't been studied very well. They haven't done a lot of studies on it, which, from everything I looked, is true. The discrediting of Osmond and Hoffer's studies just looking into adrenochrome as a cause of schizophrenia is asserted by the APA, the American Psychiatry Association. And it isn't actually, they came out and they put out a statement saying, yeah, you had methodological failures. Your methodology in your studies was wrong. We think it was bad, naughty of you. You did a bad job. But they never did studies to actually replicate any of the initial findings. So as far as this Marino guy is concerned, this sentence kind of is like, I don't know about that, bro. It was, again, largely discredited. The only thing I could find was the APA, the American Psychiatry Association, largely discredited it. And I'm actually going to link right here where Hoffer and Osmond actually discussed back in 1990 why the APA was against it. They actually talk about that. But it was, as far as largely discredited goes, it was the most powerful organization in the psychiatry field that said no, but nobody else did. And there wasn't a whole lot of studies to ever try to replicate these initial findings. So again, that doesn't have anything to do with our conspiracy theory. I do need to point that out. I'm not saying, it's all true because this guy is a liar. I'm saying when it comes to them discrediting adrenochrome psychedelic properties and the fact that it creates hallucinogens, the APA said, no, it doesn't, because your methodology in studying it was wrong. And then they never really did put in a whole lot of other studies that I can find to replicate his findings. Even though this guy right here says, oh yeah, they never did replicate the findings. Again, I was like, well, I don't think they ever tried. And as far as largely discredited goes, it was one organization that said your methodology was fucked up. But that's a whole nother thing. That's just, does adrenochrome actually cause hallucinogens? According to Marino, no, it doesn't. But before the research on adrenochrome was thoroughly debunked, again, thoroughly debunked, I don't think that's a thing. I think that's a really poor choice of words right there. The drug was lumped into the same category, at least in the layman's eyes, as LSD and other psychedelic therapies, which set it up for celebrity status and popular culture. Then we get into it again. QAnon conspiracy theory. After shedding its wrap as a psychedelic drug, adrenochrome was poised to fall somewhere into obscurity until a few years ago, when the far right-wing group QAnon built some rather, I don't even know if that's the correct way of saying that. QAnon, I've always heard QAnon, whatever, built some rather disturbing conspiracy theories around the compound. Supporters claim that adrenochrome is a drug loved by the global cabal of pedophiles who thirst for the blood of children. They claim the drug is extracted from the pituitary gland of tortured children and then sold on the black market. These global elites, as QAnon calls them, believe adrenochrome has psychedelic properties and can promise immortality. Again, the promising of immortality and the fact that it's elites that are doing it is the modern day conspiracy. The idea that you have to torture children to get it was all the way back in the 90s. That conspiracy theory happened way before QAnon was ever involved. So the reason I'm pointing these things out is because they are inconsistencies in all these articles that we're looking at. Okay. I mean, this conspiracy theory was around when I was in middle school. I heard this. All right. And I was watching it in movies. Okay. So the idea that this is a QAnon created it is not true. It's just patently not true. I don't give a fuck what anybody wants to tell you. That's not true. And science, what is the name of this website? They all have science in the title. How stuff works, they're wrong. Okay, they're 100% wrong. And that is not when it came from. And the only reason I point that out is because this article is pointing out how other people are wrong. That's what we're trying to get to the bottom of. Who's right and who's wrong, right? Again, that doesn't mean that the conspiracy theory is true. Okay? It just means that the people who are trying to debunk the conspiracy theory have some word choices in here that are very questionable, and then other things that they're saying that are patently false. So just want to say that because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to debunk everybody. We're trying to debunk the people who say the conspiracy theory is true, or we're trying to look into it, and we're trying to look into the people who are saying the conspiracy theory isn't true. And when it comes to that particular point, it's 100% wrong. I mean, you have the proof. There's a fucking movie from 1998 that says you have to torture kids to get this drug. That was not a part of the QAnon. Might still say that, but it didn't start with QAnon. That comes from way before QAnon was ever a thing. Despite this baseless theory repeatedly batted down, it kept popping up like a whack-a-mole. Unfortunately, Marino said, it's the exciting, scary news headlines that are the ones people remember and not those that turn out to be true. Fair enough. This is an interesting take. I never heard of this, but I have seen multiple articles where this is supposedly a thing. Remember Monsters, Inc., the adorable 2001 Pixar movie? I fucking love Monsters, Inc. That's such a good movie. Cutie Pie, we should watch that at some time this weekend or some point. The Pixar movie in which monsters have to scare children so that they scream in order to power their city. Some conspiracy theorists believe the movie is a nod to QAnon, adrenochrome's harvesting theory. Yeah, I love that movie. I haven't seen it in so long. And Fear and Loathing, too. We should watch that one. I mean, it's a pretty funny movie. I don't know if it's exactly your bag of tea, but I haven't seen that in like so fucking long. Me and my friends used to watch it all the time when we were kids. And I was a huge Hunter S. Thompson fan. He was one of the first big writers that I really got into. I literally got his shit tattooed on my chest, the Gonzo Fist. So we need to go check that movie out again because that was one of my all-time favorites when I was a kid growing up. I watched that movie when I was way too young, and it was a very bad influence on me, but good times. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up just for a minute, too. Okay, if we have to. All right, sounds good. Sounds like a date. Okay, so you will? Good. Okay. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, obviously, but it is kind of a funny movie. Johnny Depp is really good in it. It's got a lot of old actors that aren't around anymore. Johnny Depp, obviously, and Benicio del Toro still are. I don't know if Christina Ricci is still doing anything, but she's in it. She actually plays Lucy, the poor girl that Benicio del Toro was terrorizing on the phone there. That's Lucy, is Christina Ricci. Very young in that movie, too, like in her early 20s. Okay, so we're going to dive a little bit into this feller here, Mr. Abrahm Hoffer. We've talked about him a couple times. He's the guy that did the initial studies on adrenochrome in the 1950s. We're going to just look at some of these summaries of his studies because every single study that you can I mean, I understand to an extent, right? These people did these studies, you know, other people, but it's other people that want to make money off these studies. Science Direct did not do this study. This study was done in 1962 is when this came out in the International Review of Neurobiology. Neurobiology. Gosh, I'm having a hard time saying words today. But, you know, these fuckers want to make money off of it. And so does every other fucker on the internet. And so nowhere can you find these studies on the internet without having to pay for it. Or they just plain ass don't let you do it unless you're a part of a college. So you have to have an organization that you're a part of to even look at these studies, which really upsets me and it fucking annoys me. It's like the public can't just look at these studies. We really have to be a college student in order to find any scientific study. That pisses me off. Like, that's very fucking annoying. And so we can't get into a lot of these studies. We'll read the summaries on them because the summaries do give us enough of what the study was about and what these guys were saying, what Hoffer was saying about this particular medicine or about adrenochrome for us to get an idea of the kind of studies he did and what his general position was. So this was his study, the effect of adrenochrome and adrenolutin on the behavior of animals and the psychology of man. So publisher summary, because that's the best we fucking get. This chapter describes the activity of adrenochrome and some of its derived compounds. The effects of adrenochrome is considered first upon simple systems, then more complex systems, then simple animals, and finally upon the most complex animal, man. Animals that are given adrenochrome range from spiders, fish, and pigeons to the mammals including rats, cats, dogs, monkeys, and man. This chapter gives much original data on cats and man. Chemically, adrenochrome and adrenolutin are very reactive substances. Some of the changes produced by adrenochrome may persist for several days, and in some cases, the effects led to nearly disastrous results. 2 cases of prolonged reactions are discussed in the chapter. There is also a discussion regarding the reaction that lasted more than 1 day after a single administration of adrenolutin, as well as reactions up to 1 week. The changes in thinking induced by adrenochrome are similar to those observed in schizophrenia. Adrenochrome causes an elective inhibition of the process, which determines the content of associative thinking. This occurs in doses that do not heighten the liability of basic processes, do not reduce excitation, and do not lose temporary connections, as is the case with LSD. So again, there's Mr. Hoffer here asserting that it does in fact create the similar effect of schizophrenia. He doesn't outright say hallucinations in this, but that is ultimately the conclusion that he comes to. With this, we'll again read a little bit more about this, but that's him, the initial study where he tests adrenochrome on a whole lot of animals and then eventually himself. And what he gets is, yes, this stuff causes hallucinations and is very similar to LSD and ibogaine. So this is him going back to his adrenochrome hypothesis in 1990. That initial study was published in 1964 and done in the 1950s. This is him revisiting that hypothesis of his. Him and Osmond, what was that guy's name? Something Osmond, started with an H, but I don't remember. Osmond and Hoffer in 1990. This is them writing about that. Okay, and it's a very long write-up. I mean, I've been scrolling for a minute. Those are all just references. Okay, hold on. Let's see. I'm looking for the key things that I wanted to give you guys because this goes over, in short, they still believe in it. By 1990, they're like, no, it is a thing. Like, we still believe that the adrenochrome hypothesis of schizophrenia was stimulated by work of Osmond and Smithies in 1952. And let's see, they showed that experience which followed the ingestion of mescaline was in many ways similar to the experience induced in normal people by schizophrenia. This drew attention to derivatives of adrenaline and all of the sympathomimic. They got little lines in these words that make it even more difficult. They put a hyphen in the middle in this particular write-up by orthomolecular.org and their precursors as etiological factors. However, in 1952, very few of these compounds had been studied. With our resources, we were forced to limit our studies to one derivative, adrenochrome, an oxidized, colored derivative of adrenaline. So little was known about its chemistry, it was not surprising chemists had concluded incorrectly it was inherently unstable and difficult to study. So they, again, remember that first article said it is, Science Times said is an unstable compound? It is an unstable chemical compound. These guys say it isn't. They said, no, we studied it and it's not. You incorrectly assumed that in 1952. It was inherently unstable and difficult to study. We allocated much of our chemical researches to this interesting substance. As a result, under the direction of Dr. Heacock, an enormous body of data was gathered and published detailing the chemistry of adrenochrome and synthesis, metabolism, conversion to other products, and its reactions with substances like absorbic acid. Adrenochrome is a member class, yada, yada, yada. They are found in radicals. It is cyclotomimic. Leucadrenochrome is colorless and non-toxic. On the contrary, even small doses given sublingually, it has anti-tension and anti-anxiety properties. Adrenoleutin is more stable than adrenochrome. Okay, adrenochromes polymerize readily, forming a complex system of melanins. Recently, the melanins have been considered. We also published a large series of clinical studies showing adrenochrome and adrenoleutin were hallucinogens. These studies are described in our book, The Hallucinogens, in 1967. That review is still pertinent for the whole area of adrenochrome investigation went into hibernation for a number of reasons, especially in psychiatry. In 1981, Hoffer wrote, interest in the aminochromes is returning because some of the properties of the centrally active amines can, I think they meant aminos, cannot be understood unless their degradation into these oxidized derivatives is considered. The dopamine hypothesis of schizophrenia is widely known and accepted, even though it is a simple, too much or too little idea. I.e., in schizophrenics, there may be too much dopamine or too little. Major support was provided by the finding that tranquilizers block dopamine receptors. Absorbic acid also blocks dopamine receptors, but so far this finding has been ignored. It is embarrassing to have a vitamin have the same effect as a tranquilizer. So they're against the dopamine hypothesis of what causes schizophrenia. The dopamine hypothesis of schizophrenia says that schizophrenics are schizophrenic because they have too much dopamine or too little dopamine in their system. And they say this is heavily supported, and by the major support was provided by the finding that tranquilizers block dopamine receptors, even though absorbic acid does the same thing. I'm pretty sure absorbic acid is vitamin C. Which is why he says it is, chemical name for vitamin C. See, I told you. Absorbic acid is just vitamin C. So their assumption is, tranquilizers help with dopamine, but vitamin C also blocks dopamine receptors. So I've never heard that. That's interesting. I've never heard anybody tell me that in my life. And my dad made vitamins and formulated vitamins for a living. I've never heard him say anything about absorbic acid blocking dopamine receptors. That's Hoffer that says that. Hoffer concluded the adrenochrome hypothesis accounts for the syndrome of schizophrenia more accurately than do any of the competing hypotheses. The two main hypotheses are superfluous since they are accommodated by the adrenochrome, or more accurately, the aminochrome hypothesis. So recently, Cadet and Lohr came to the same conclusion. There was another study done in 1987 that said the same thing, that nobody mentioned in these articles we were talking about, correct? They summarize the report as follows. The dopamine hypothesis has been criticized because it fails to examine many clinical facts and biomechanical findings in schizophrenia patients. After review of the possible neurotoxic effects of free radicals formed during states of high dopamine turnover, we postulate that the neuronal damage caused during these episodes might form the substrate of a comprehensive hypothesis that could potentially explain the protean findings in a group of schizophrenias and the progression of the syndrome in some patients to the so-called schizophrenic defect state. So another study says, yes, we think that the dopamine hypothesis is incomplete and the adrenochrome hypothesis has a place in this conversation. We find this hypothesis very interesting, for it is exactly what we have been proposing since we first publicly discussed our adrenochrome hypothesis in 1952 before the Dementia Committee of the Scottish Rites Masons in New York. Hoffer wrote, unfortunately, the many leads developed by the adrenochrome hypothesis have been neglected by research institutions for a number of reasons. The critical and hostile attitude of the professional associations and granting agencies discourage scientists from entering this difficult but challenging field. Fortunately, the climate of opinion is changing. I expect that for the next decade, the adrenochrome hypothesis will receive more careful attention. We think it is appropriate to review the adrenochrome hypothesis of schizophrenia, for in our opinion, it is a powerful hypothesis. Hypotheses are needed to direct research. They are not forever, for with new information, they must inevitably change. But the adrenochrome hypothesis has not yet run its course. It should lead to even better treatment for all diseases in which oxidation plays a role. So they give you the original hypothesis here. So let's see. This is how is adrenochrome made in the body. As soon as scientists discovered adrenaline turned pink in solution, it appeared likely that what happened in vitro could also occur in the body. Adrenaline is a member of a class of catecholamines, which polymerize very readily. The melanines are these polymerized, oxidized, and indolized what did I say that word was? Catecholamines. So I'm not going to get too deep into all this, all right? If we're going to keep doing this, gain adrenochrome extracted. However, any stable derivative will do, yada, yada. Adrenoleutin is another derivative of adrenochrome. Recently, yeah, okay. Cocaine blocks two of the enzyme systems the body normally uses to destroy adrenaline, thus forcing more of it into the adrenochrome pathway. It is this explanation for sudden death associated with cocaine. Oh, is this the explanation for sudden death associated with cocaine abuse? Oh, wow. That's interesting. So let's see. Vitamin B3, niacin or niacinamide protects brain tissues against some of the toxic effects of adrenochrome, such as EEG changes, and schizophrenic-like symptoms. In our opinion, all patients with Parkinson's should be taking vitamin B3. It will not protect them from the ataxia and tremor, but it will prevent psychiatric changes or reverse them if they have already occurred and may prevent further loss of neurons. Are the adrenochromes hallucinogens? The two classic hallucinogens are mescaline, derived from the cactus peyote, and dialysergic, I think they're forgetting a letter in there, dialysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD, which is extracted from ergot. LSD is the most active of hallucinogens. 1 to 200 micrograms will cause a reaction lasting 6 or more hours. Much more mescaline is required to produce a similar reaction. These compounds do not cause schizophrenia, but do cause a reaction in normal people, which mimics schizophrenia. That they produce what is usually written as model psychosis. Only 3 of the adrenochromes have been tested for hallucinogenic properties: adrenochrome, adrenoleutin, and leucoadrenochrome. The first two, that's not DMT. Okay, it's just making sure. I thought it was close. I was like, oh, is that DMT? No. The first two are hallucinogens, but the third is not. On the contrary, it is a very effective anti-anxiety compound when given sublingually for some very tense individuals, producing an effect within 5 to 10 minutes. The evidence of this conclusion is available in the Hallucinogens. That's their book they wrote in 1962. So adrenochrome potentiated the activity of LSD in a few alcoholics. We're working through a block. 2 basic equations. Well, unfortunately, this is such a long read, and I'm going to be sitting here for the rest of the stream running through this to get to the good bits. But I am going to link this in the description so you can read it, because it is a really awesome read. And I did read a lot of it last night. So the long story short is they say, well, yes, the APA, let me pop it up right here so you can kind of at least see that. If I can find APA in here anywhere. Oh, here it is, political. So, politics, yada, yada, yada. The APA, we're almost there. The American Psychiatric Association have taken a leading role in a few of their members. The first, yada, yada, yada. So the APA committee and the NIMH, and that is the National Institute of Mental Health, and the American Psychiatric Association, they've essentially came out and said, no, we don't agree with you. We think your methodology was incorrect in your studies, and thus we're not going to continue studying this line of thought. We're not going to continue looking into your hypothesis. And this is addressed by Hoffer and Osmond. who say, well, this is essentially, you guys disagree with it, fine, but you're not studying it. You're just disagreeing with it. You have yet to actually produce any studies that prove we are wrong. You are just saying the studies we did were wrong. And all this essentially is you guys are just, you guys don't like this particular study. I forget what the reason he gives is for that. I believe it was just simply it goes against what you guys have been teaching for a very long time, which again is the dopamine theory of the dopamine hypothesis is what you guys have gone with. And because you've gone with that and you're sticking with it, you don't want to dive into this. And he says, and this is pretty common in science. This happens all the time. He said it takes roughly 30 to 40 years for any idea to either be proven correct or incorrect. And it takes that long for anybody in the medical field to actually say, okay, we should redo these studies and find out what actually happened. But in the meantime, everybody's emotions are high and they don't want to look into it. So they say their conclusion is the aminochromes undoubtedly are involved in almost every reaction in which catecholamines play a part. A vast new area has now opened for physiological and biochemical research. And then there's two other studies in 1989 and 1989 that state oxidation products of catecholamines, such as adrenochrome, rather than catecholamines per se, may be involved in catecholamine-induced myocardial cell damage. Previous studies have revealed that adrenochrome is capable of inducing coronary spasms, arrhythmia, ultrastructural changes, and ventricular dysfunction. They suggest damage caused by I don't know how to say that word. Due to adrenochrome, extra adrenaline is oxidized when other mechanisms for inactivating catecholamines are saturated. Catecholamines are involved in stress reactions and are neurotransmitters. Any compound which potentiates or inhibits the reactivity of catecholamines will be modulated by the presence of corresponding aminochromes. The action of all tranquilizers, antidepressants, and other psychoactive drugs will have to be reevaluated. It is likely subjects low in aminochromes will respond differently than subjects with high blood levels. So this is them continuing to say this is important stuff. They even had in here, they looked it up on adrenochrome effects on the heart. I forget exactly what their findings were there. But according to them, adrenochrome and the other aminochromes have a lot of studying that needs to be done because it could be potentially helpful in helping to cure schizophrenia, helping to cure issues with the heart, and a whole bunch of various different things, right? So this is them fighting back against the APA and the NIMH, saying you guys suck, basically. I will link this article in the description for those who want to read it. It is a very entertaining, to me, I thought it was a very interesting read, and it just covers so much in this article. It's like, whew, it's very dense, right? There's a lot going on in this article. They make a lot of assertions. They talk about a lot of shit and all around, a lot of references here to various different studies. But what we care about when it comes to the adrenochrome conspiracy theory, the reason why I'm bringing all this up is to say that, yes, this guy swears to it, that it is a hallucinogen, and the APA and the NIMH say, no, it's not. Your methodology was wrong. This is him coming back and saying, fuck you guys. My methodology was fine. Do studies and prove it. And again, like I said, I looked into it and couldn't find studies being done on it. Okay, here's another study by Abrahm Hoffer and another man named Harold Foster, Schizophrenia and Cancer, the Adrenochrome Balanced Morphism. So we can read the abstract of this just real quick, because again, this is paywalled. Science Direct wants us to give them monies or prove that we're a part of a college before they'll let us read this. Cancer might be expected to be more, this is just another interesting aspect of adrenochrome. This was published in 2004, by the way. Okay, so cancer might be expected to be more common amongst schizophrenics than the general population. That's because schizophrenics live in selenium deficient regions, have seriously compromised antioxidant defense systems, and are chain smokers. They actually say here in the intro, only 33% of the general public smokes, but over 90% of known schizophrenics are cigarette smokers, which is very interesting. That's kind of crazy, right? The available literature on cancer-schizophrenia relationship in patients from England, Wales, Ireland, Denmark, USA, and Japan, however, strongly suggests the opposite, that schizophrenics don't actually have a higher rate of cancer. One of the authors has treated, this is Hoffer, has treated 4,000 schizophrenics since 1952. Only 4 of his patients have developed cancer. Since low cancer incidence have been recorded amongst patients treated by both conventional physicians using pharmaceuticals and by orthomolecular doctors who emphasize vitamins and minerals, it follows that this depressed cancer incident must be related to the biochemistry of the disorder itself. Taken as a whole, therefore, the evidence seems to suggest that schizophrenics, their siblings, and parents are less susceptible to cancer than the general population. These relationships seem compatible with one or more genetic risk factors for schizophrenia that offers a selective advantage against cancer. There is experimental evidence that appears to support this possibility. Matrix Pharmaceuticals, Inc. has received a U.S. patent covering the composition of intradose injectable gel. The gel contains cisplatin and epinephrine, and it's designed to be injected directly into tumor masses. Cisplatin is a very powerful oxidant, which will almost certainly rapidly convert the adrenaline to adrenochrome. While the manufacturers of intradose consider cisplatin to be the active cytotoxic agent in intradose, it seems more likely that adrenochrome and its derivatives may in fact be more effective. Intradose gel has undergone or is undergoing a series of phase 3 open-label clinical studies being injected into patients' tumors that have been identified as the most troublesome by their physicians. The results have been impressive for breast cancer, malignant melanoma, esophageal cancer, and cancer of the head, esophageal, and cancer of the head, neck, and liver. The evidence suggests that there are balanced morphisms in schizophrenia that result in above normal exposure to catecholamine derivatives. We went over that word again, catecholamine, since such catecholamines are both hallucinogenic and anticarcinogenic, abnormally high exposure to them simultaneously increases susceptibility to schizophrenia and reduces the probability of developing cancer. These observations have significant implications for the treatment of both illnesses. So this is another study done by Hoffer and Foster in 2004, claiming, and they reference another study that was done here. They talk about, where was it? Oh, they are referencing Matrix Pharmaceuticals, Inc. and their drug that has adrenochrome in it that is being used to cure cancer. And they are also making the note that, hey, schizophrenics, we have observed schizophrenics as having higher levels of adrenochrome, which is why they are constantly hallucinating. And wouldn't you know it, here's these people over here that claim this drug that they have that has adrenochrome in it cures cancer, and schizophrenics are incredibly adverse to catching cancer. And this product has adrenochrome. Schizophrenics have adrenochrome. No cancer anywhere. We're all cancer-free in this bitch. You know, I'm making a connection here, is what they're saying. The connection is adrenochrome is also anti-cancer cells, which is interesting. Okay, this came out in 2004. And what's interesting about this is, again, this is yet another instance of this guy pushing for adrenochrome, saying, hey, you fuckers, adrenochrome can cure cancer. It's hallucinogenic. This helps us, I guess, not cure schizophrenia, but understand where schizophrenia comes from. If we can lower the adrenochrome in somebody's body, we can maybe potentially cure their schizophrenia. And this is the only scientific instance I can find of somebody saying adrenochrome has properties that aren't necessarily anti-aging, but they do take away your cancer. They stop cancer from forming, which is a massive, which is very, very interesting. Okay, just wanted to throw that out there. Another potential use of adrenochrome, according to Mr. Abrahm Hoffer. Okay, so here, Mr. Abrahm Hoffer, I wanted to point this out. I had to look him up just a little bit to see what's with this guy. He is a huge proponent of mega vitamin theory and other nutritional interventions, and are potentially effective he says that these are potentially effective treatments for cancer and schizophrenia, right? He also did a lot of LSD experimentation and the discovery that high-dose niacin can be used to treat high cholesterol and other dyslipidemias. Can't believe I got that word, dyslipidemias. So there is controversy surrounding this guy. This is the reason I brought up his Wikipedia. I don't use Wikipedia a lot, but just wanted to show you, okay, Haller's claims regarding schizophrenia and his theories of holistic orthomolecular medicine have been criticized by the mainstream of psychiatry. In 1973, the American Psychiatric Association reported methodological flaws in Hoffer's work on niacin as a schizophrenia treatment and referred to follow-up studies that did not confirm any benefits of the treatment, prompting at least 2 responses. So this is an important thing. Like I said, I can't find any other studies that are going into adrenochrome as an hallucinogen. What I can find is studies where studies that do not confirm niacin as a treatment for schizophrenia. So I just wonder when we go back here to Mr. Marino and he says, no, they have disproven it with studies, if he isn't actually saying, no, they disproved another idea of this guy's in studies. Multiple additional studies in the United States, Canada, and Australia have similarly failed to find benefits of mega vitamin therapy to treat schizophrenia. The term orthomolecular was labeled a misnomer as early as 1973. Psychiatric and critic of psychiatry Thomas Szasz, author of The Myth of Mental Illness, believed Hoffer's views of schizophrenia as a physical disease treatable with vitamins and self-help therapy to be pure quackery. So, that doesn't say much. It just says that there's this guy that says this guy thinks he's a quack. But, we do have a moment here where the American Psychiatric Association says, no, your methodology and using niacin as a treatment for schizophrenia is wrong. That treatment of niacin, if we go back, that article that I'm going to link from 1990 where he addresses this, the niacin, ultimately, this is what he said, niacin would help with the lowering of the adrenochrome in the body, which would help treat schizophrenia. And it was this idea of taking niacin that he called one of the proponents of mega, where was it? Mega vitamin therapy. And then the term he coined, orthomolecular, was labeled a misnomer by somebody in 1973. We can go down to that reference to see who that was. Task Force Report on Megavitamin and Orthomolecular Therapy in Psychiatry. Oh, the American Psychiatric Association. Oh, and it isn't there anymore. So that shouldn't be allowed. That should be off of this website. If the source doesn't work, you can't click on it. But in any case, again, I'm not sure why that's APA claimed that this term orthomolecular is a misnomer. And in any case, there is controversy. All I'm trying to say is there is controversy surrounding this guy, right? This guy does not have a perfect record of saying things that everybody agreed with. He does have, more specifically, the American Psychiatric Association continuously and pretty regularly throughout his career saying, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you are wrong, right? But he keeps coming back and saying, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, I'm out. He keeps doing that bit. And then we have some random dude, Thomas Szasz, says, oh, it's pure quackery. But again, you can literally just put a source there of anybody saying anything about anybody. It's just one guy that says this. But yes, he does have other critics then. Critic of psychiatry says this guy's a douche. Fair enough. Okay. So in any case, just needed to point out to get the full story there. Because again, we're not just trying to disprove what one specific group of people is saying. I'm trying to give you the whole spiel of what everyone's saying. And the spiel as it is obviously very contentious. Before we even get into the modern day conspiracy theory, we have people saying, nope, adrenochrome is not an hallucinogen in any way, shape, or form. That was the original thought behind adrenochrome that Aldous Huxley and Hunter S. Thompson and the other guy put into their movies and books and said, oh, yes, it's a hallucinogen and you have to scare a small child in order to get it out of the adrenal glands. The guy who initially said that it was an hallucinogen did studies on it, continued all the way up to 2004 to say, no, it's a hallucinogen. And I've taken it and it made me hallucinate. And it is definitely, and then, they claim, no, you're wrong. He said this definitely has something to do with schizophrenia. And even in 2004 went as far to take a look at this other medicine that has adrenochrome in it that was being studied to help with cancerous tumor growth, and said, look, this works because it has adrenochrome in it, and then schizophrenics also have an incredibly low rate of cancer. So, I'm putting two together. Again, this would be evidence of the idea that high levels of adrenochrome is what causes people to become schizophrenics because it causes hallucinations. And he's still saying that in 2004. He's not giving up. The APA is telling him he's wrong. His methodology was wrong in his initial studies, and they disagree with his that niacin can be used to treat. They disagree with him on niacin being used to treat schizophrenia, that this adrenochrome causes hallucinations. They disagree with his idea of orthomolecular medicine and megavitamin theory and the adrenochrome hypothesis regarding schizophrenia. But they're the biggest group. They're the group of people. The NIMH did too. They also said, no, your adrenochrome hypothesis regarding schizophrenia is incomplete. The methodology isn't there. But the APA really does not like this guy. And that's for you to go out and look at. You go ahead and go research. It's tough to research this because everybody's studies are behind fucking paywalls on the internet. Science Direct and everybody else is trying to make money by making sure you can't see these studies unless you pay them for the privilege, or you're paying your college for the privilege. And then if you're paying a college, then they'll let you look at these studies. But if you're just a regular dude, a regular Joe Blow, uh-oh. I think it happens. I think they just kicked me out. I think Twitch just did something with it. I mean, I'm still live, but anybody watching my stream was just kicked out of it. What about on YouTube? Am I still streaming live? Yeah, we're still live on YouTube. It's still streaming. Okay. Well, it's still, that's crazy. Look at that. Wow. My cutie pie is watching my stream and she just got booted out and now she can't find me anywhere on Twitch. I'm still streaming. Try restarting Twitch and see what happens. That's very funny. I'm still streaming on Twitch, but I told you at the beginning of this, I fucking told you that, look, this adrenochrome is touchy shit. People get really pissed off about this, okay? I don't know if you guys have noticed yet, since I've been doing this, that we had multiple articles that I brought up on this. And nobody, including E-Bomb's World, were real fucking dicks about this. Yeah, they really like had it out for people who believe in this. So like, you people believe in this, you're fucking morons. And it's like, all right, like, it's really funny that you take this to that extreme. But, you know, I told you guys this was a thing. I did the researching into it and I was like, oh yeah, no, this is, oh, you're back. Okay. I was just commenting on the whole situation, cutie. But yeah, for a minute there, I told you at the beginning of the stream, this is very touchy shit. People get freaked out by the adrenochrome conversation, and social media specifically tends to be getting very upset about it. And we'll actually talk about that here in a minute, why that is. But I figured it might have something to do with that. It's real funny. I am still streaming though, as you know now, but it's pretty crazy. You know, this is the only time I've ever said that, though. The one stream I ever did. That's a crazy coincidence. That's funny. We don't have proof it's anything other than a coincidence. But isn't that a funny coincidence that the only time I've ever started my stream and said, today might be the day that my channel gets fucked. And then you get booted out of my fucking stream and you can't find my profile. Tried to search for it and it was gone. Like, that's fucking hilarious. Like, I told you, I called that shit. Look, there's sometimes I have a hard time saying certain words. Okay, I'm not a wordsmith, but other times I can call this shit. I totally called you. First stream I've ever done in 3 months of streaming, and at the beginning I said this might be the stream where YouTube and Twitch start fucking with my channel. because they do not like this topic. They do not like when people talk about this shit. And boom, first time ever, you get booted off of my Twitch and then you can't find me again. That's fucking crazy. Well, we're going to get into that for a minute. Why that might be, why that would be the case. Okay. Because I didn't just randomly say that. You know, as much credit as I would like to take for seeing the future, that's not the case. There is a reason why that's a thing that happens. Well, I suspected this would be a thing that happens. So we're going to get into that here in a little bit. Long story short, I'll hang it up when it comes with Mr. Hoffer here. I just wanted to press the issue to you that even when it comes to this guy's, oh, that's pretty crazy. Wrote a message, wasn't able to send, and then he refreshed and it was all just gone. Yeah, pretty crazy. Haven't had that happen yet. 3 months of streaming, that's never happened. So, I don't know. Take it for what you will. I just wanted to introduce you guys to Hoffer's work because this is something that's been asserted in these articles that it has been proven that it's not hallucinogen. And as far as I can find, it hasn't been proven. It's just the APA very heavily disagrees with it. And the studies themselves haven't been done. You've seen it in these exact same articles. They claim that, well, nobody's really done any studies on it. Not a whole lot of studies have been done on adrenochrome. And it's like, this guy's done a fuck ton of studies on adrenochrome and has linked it to multiple things. And the APA just says, no, he's wrong. His methodology is off. And I would love to just look at the methodology, but every single time I try to get one of his fucking studies up to actually look at it, I can't. It's behind a fucking paywall, or not even a paywall. You can't even pay to get to it. You have to be a part of, you have to type in your organization, your school, I'm assuming is what they mean. Because there's a lot of, that's not abnormal. That part isn't, that's pretty regular. That I have a whole scholarly research folder in all of these places, science.gov, JSTOR, they all, you pretty much have to have a link to somebody's school. You have to have a student ID or something in order to look at some of those studies, which is just really fucked up. Like that's the case, you know, or that they're, you know, you have to pay for a membership, and the memberships are like $50-$60 a month or some fucking god awful shit. It's ridiculous, but that is what it is. In any case, I just wanted to I'll link all this guy's studies that I can't have, you know, if you are a college student, maybe you can get into them and read them and see if the methodology is as fucked up as everybody says it is. But that's all the APA is saying is, dude, your methodology is shit. And we disagree with it. But as far as studies being done to disprove him, it's not happening. Instead, he's doing studies. The APA is saying, no, your methodology is wrong. And then nobody else is doing any studies on it, more or less. That's pretty much what's happening, right? So we're going to get into, now, Hoffer was where this basis for this conspiracy theory started. I'm going to explain this a little bit more just so we got the full picture here, even if it takes a little bit of extra time. Hoffer and Osmond start researching adrenochrome in the 1950s. They conclude that it is a hallucinogen that could potentially give us an insight into schizophrenia because it induces a schizophrenic-like state. Popular culture takes it, runs with it from there. The idea that it's an hallucinogen becomes more or less a conspiracy theory. Somewhere in the 90s, that conspiracy theory changes to you have to torture young children in order to get the proper amount of adrenochrome, to get the real good stuff. You have to torture a small child to get that. For the record, Hoffer never said anything like that in any of his studies on adrenochrome. That was never a part of what he studied. He did not say that was a thing. As a matter of fact, it sounds like adrenochrome is very easy to get because, I mean, he was over there giving it to spiders. He was like, drink this hallucinogen, little spider, have a trip with me. And, you know, so if it, you know, I highly doubt this dude was torturing young children in his basement to get his adrenochrome, right? You never know, but it doesn't seem like he was, and nobody concluded that he was. So that's all just conspiracy theory. You know, that's where the initial conspiracy theory was. That was in the 90s. And then that somehow in the early 2000s turned to elites. Hollywood elites are using adrenochrome to help them cure themselves of getting old. It's anti-aging serum, essentially, is what it is. And I have a couple other links where I can maybe connect that, where maybe why that happens in the early 2000s, why that connection was made. In 2004, though, a possibility could be Hoffer's continuous work on adrenochrome, because as late as the 1990s and early 2000s, he was still studying adrenochrome, and what he was finding was adrenochrome can potentially stop cancer and can potentially help your heart. It can potentially make your heart improve. So there was multiple benefits that he was finding to adrenochrome. Okay, now Hoffer throughout his entire career was in heavy disagreement with the APA for his multivitamin theory and the idea that you can use niacin to help with schizophrenia. They heavily discredited that idea, said, no, that is not true at all. There is studies out there that were done on that say, no, we didn't find anything of the sort in our particular studies. Those studies do exist, but the studies proving that adrenochrome is not a hallucinogen, I couldn't find any other studies that said that. And what I keep finding in articles is, well, it just hasn't been studied that much. The only guy that is studying it is this guy, okay? But he is not saying that, okay? He is not saying it's an anti-aging serum. He is not saying elites or the cabals are, a cabal of elites are using adrenochrome. He's not saying any of that. He's just saying adrenochrome could be the potential reason why schizophrenia is a thing. That's all he's saying. And then he's saying niacin could help cure adrenochrome. And then he's saying, yeah, the dopamine hypothesis for schizophrenia is incorrect. If that were the case, then vitamin C would cure adrenochrome, but it doesn't. So, or it would cure schizophrenia, excuse me, but it doesn't. So, and again, all of that is still being discredited or disagreed with by the APA, right? They still say, no, this dude's completely 100% wrong, okay? So that's where he falls into this study. That's where the adrenochrome idea originally came from. That's the source of it, and potentially the source of where, at least when the conspiracy gets to, oh, it's an anti-aging serum now. It's more than just LSD on times 10. It's also anti-aging properties. That might come from his studies claiming that it helps cure cancer and helps with heart issues. Very good for your cardio. It's very good for your heart. Okay. I'm blanking on the word right now. So we understand what the conspiracy theory is. We've seen what articles have said about it, and what articles are saying about this conspiracy theory is it is a QAnon conspiracy theory, and QAnon conspiracy theory, there are no studies to prove any of this. They go so far as to say it is 100% not hallucinogen because the APA says so. And yeah, they this person gives us the very first mention of adrenochrome harvesting is in 4chan. A very anti-Semitic post on 4chan was the first known mention of it. And then, yeah, we have a fellow over here that says, yeah, no, this conspiracy theory is nonsensical, yada, yada, yada. Again, I pointed out specific little phrases in these articles that I'm saying, well, I don't think that's true. The idea that QAnon created the conspiracy is not true. The idea that it was being harvested from children was a conspiracy theory way back in the 90s. It was literally in 90s pop culture. So it was not started by QAnon. QAnon might certainly believe in it for certain, but that doesn't mean that it was actually started. And they then again, they say it is largely discredited, thoroughly debunked, that the research on adrenochrome by Hoffer was thoroughly debunked, which I highly disagree with that idea. It doesn't seem like it's been thoroughly debunked. It seems other research of his, like on niacin, has been thoroughly debunked, but nobody else is studying his original research on adrenochrome being an hallucinogen that I could find. And again, I can't even find his studies, though, that I can look at to see, because it's all behind fucking paywalls and shit, right? They, again, saying largely discredited, never replicated. Again, I'm not seeing any studies that were even attempting to replicate it. Again, that's all just issues that I have. The only issues I have is their framing of this as a QAnon conspiracy just because QAnon exists. And it's like, dude, this conspiracy has been around longer than I've been alive, broski. Okay. And then the continuous assertion that this Hoffer's guy studies have been heavily debunked. That's just not true either. I haven't seen that, okay? So those are the issues I have with the people who have issues with the conspiracy theorists. When it comes to conspiracy theory itself, we don't have a lot of information on anything, if you haven't noticed. I haven't proven to you guys, supplied you. We've been talking for an hour and 30 minutes, and I have yet to give you guys any kind of evidence that the conspiracy theory is true. Any part of conspiracy theory. The only thing that might potentially be true that they keep saying is wrong is adrenochrome is an hallucinogen. Okay. And that's the only thing where I'm not sold that it isn't. Right. I'm not sold on the idea that it isn't. I'm not sold on the idea that it is, but I'm not sold on the idea that it isn't. I do not feel like, oh, this is 100% disproven. I looked for studies. I found you guys studies, and I didn't find any studies saying that it wasn't. All I found was the APA saying the methodology in the studies that say that it is incorrect. Therefore, we don't believe that it's an hallucinogen. That's all I found. Okay. So, you know, if you find something, link it in the comment section. I would legit read it. It would be dope to see. You know, I could have easily missed it. The internet's a big fucking place, broski. Just because I didn't find it doesn't mean it's not out there. 100%. Yeah. So, anyways, and then when it comes to, you know, torturing the kids to get it, this guy was using adrenochrome and he never said anything of the sort. It seems like there's multiple companies that are using adrenochrome either as a blood coagulant or studying it for cancer cure. I highly doubt that they're torturing children to get it. You know what I'm saying? But I haven't given you any evidence of any of these things, right? So that's what I'm going to do now. If you thought that Cutie Pie might have been shadow banned from my channel because I'm talking about adrenochrome, oh, I might just get the FBI called on me for this one. But I don't know. Highly doubt it. But yeah, this is definitely going to not earn me any favors on any social media website. We're going to actually look into the conspiracy theory and potential evidence for that. A little bit of potential evidence for it, okay? So first, I want to bring you over to the Infograph Show. I fucking love this channel. This is an awesome channel. Give them a like. These guys make really funny and entertaining cartoons that do a really good job of describing things. They're just going to describe, why are the super rich injecting your blood? Ooh, let's see. Why would they be? Because my blood's awesome, bitch. That's why. Okay. Infographs Show. Let's see what they have to say.
The swankiest party in the city. Lucky you. Sure, you may just be a poor college student surviving paycheck to paycheck, but for reasons currently unknown to you, the local movers and shakers at a mansion outside of town really want you to attend. But when you arrive, you notice everyone seems to be about 60 years older than you. Immediately, your mind is racing, wondering if you've been invited to some creepy, eyes wide shut sex party, or if you're just about to have your body donated to one of their rich old brains, like in Jordan Peele's movie Get Out. But hey, don't worry about it. They don't want your body in either sense. They just want your blood. That's right, the sweet red elixir of life. And no, they're not part of some deranged blood cult. They're actually customers to a new Silicon Valley startup offering a process known as young blood transfusion, which, by the way, is literally exactly what it sounds like. Rich old people are buying young people's blood to maintain their youth and vitality. Let's talk about the how, where, when, and why.
So, need to stop it here. I know this is a really funny cartoon, and that's all good and well, but this is true. So here's The Guardian. Could young blood stop us from getting old? This is in 2000, I believe. Let's 2020. My bad, not 2000. 2020. Yeah. The infograph, I don't know when they put out this video. 4 years ago. Okay, so this was a thing 4 years ago. U.S. biotech companies are working towards plasma therapies to tackle age-related diseases in humans. So, gosh, I've been coughing like a madman. U.S.-based startup called Ambryosa. In 2016, enough interest had grown to prompt a U.S.-based startup called Ambryosa to start offering pricey infusions of young plasma, the cell-free component of blood. The procedure came under fire from the USA Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, early last year, both for its lack of proven clinical benefit and for potential safety issues. Ambryosa closed, though it was recently reopened. Meanwhile, a clutch of scientific startups are trying to discover the secrets of parabiosis and use them to tackle age-related diseases. Parabiosis, I don't know exactly what that is. By identifying factors in plasma that change with age, they aim to create therapies that either supplement what's beneficial in young blood or to inhibit what's detrimental in old. One is even beginning to report early clinical trial results. So this is how the idea came. In the early 2000s, a group of scientists at Stanford University revived a grisly procedure used in the 1950s known as parabiosis. Oh, that's it. They are paired living mice, young with old, peeled back their skin and stretched together their sides so that the two animals shared the same blood circulatory system. Oh, poor mice. A month later, they found signs of rejuvenation in the muscles and livers of the old mice. The findings, published in 2005, turns the minds of scientists, entrepreneurs, and the public to the potential of young blood rejuvenate aging people. I said that sentence wrong, obviously. But identifying factors in plasma that change with age, they aim to create therapies that either supplement what's beneficial in young blood or to inhibit what's detrimental in old blood. There's still a long way to go. Blood is complicated, says Aubrey de Grey, who leads the nonprofit SENS Research Foundation. Strategies for engineering negligible senescence. Okay. But there are many excellent labs focused on this, so I am optimistic about progress. While no one thinks that altering one or more blood factors will be the sole answer to slowing or reversing age, blood has the potential advantage of cutting across various aging mechanisms, allowing several of them to be modulated all at once. Oh, here, let's pop over here. Just in time for me to burp in your face. While no one thinks... Okay. The Alcahest Pristine Laboratories sit just off the freeway connecting San Francisco to Silicon Valley. The company was founded by Tony Weiss-Correa, somebody's name I can say, kinda, a neurologist at Stanford University, after he published papers showing that the rejuvenating effect of parabiosis extended to the mouse brain. Old mice showed improved performance on cognitive tasks and grew new neurons. His study also showed that it was young plasma that had the beneficial effect, with proteins in that plasma seeming largely responsible. Okay. So Alcahest is a business, has more than $41.5 million in funding, has clinical trials underway, and is reporting its first results. We're not just big mice, says Stephen Brathwaite, Alcahest's chief scientific officer. We've seen so much in our animal model that convince us, but we need to learn from people. In August of last year, Alcahest reported the results from a 6-month trial that saw 40 patients with mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease infused with a proprietary human plasma fraction. It appeared to arrest their expected mental decline. Holy shit. The fraction was one of two that Alcahest has developed that are similar in nature. Each contains about 500 proteins, far fewer than the 10 to 20,000 contained in natural human plasma. The fractions are made from pooled plasma, which allows for a homogeneous product by Grifols, a plasma-derived medicines company that is investor in Alcahest. The fractions contain fewer of the proteins that increase with age, leaving more that decrease with age. Donors to the plasma pool are in their early 30s, on average much younger than intended recipients. So they believe that it could affect symptoms and slow progression of neurodegenerative diseases. Trials among patients with severe Alzheimer's and with Parkinson's are due to report. Following the encouraging results among patients with mild to moderate Alzheimer's, a larger trial with placebo control is planned. Depending on the trials, the company hopes that fraction plasma treatments will be available within a decade. Wow, that's really fucking cool. Alivian, another one. Startup Alivian also wants to commercialize the power of parabiosis. It was co-founded in 2018 by Amy Waggers, who is on the Stanford Parabiosis Revival team and is now a professor of stem cell and regenerative biology at Harvard University. Man, I bet they are making some money. The company is based in Boston, but with an office in Silicon Valley, and is backed by $9.4 million in investment, including from the firm of Peter Diamond, a tech entrepreneur and futurist. It is working on therapies to elevate the activity of growth differentiation factor 11, GDF11, a protein in blood plasma present in very small amounts that it believes decreases with age in mice. Studies published in 2013 and 14 by Waggers Laboratory and those of the company's other scientific co-founders showed that old mice infected with GDF11 reproduced several of the parabiosis findings, with regeneration seen in the heart, skeletal muscle, and brain. It is the only factor that has been demonstrated in old mice to have beneficial effects across a number of major organs that decline with age. Alivian is working on scaling up GDF11 production before launching its first human trial. GDF11 is controversial. It has proved hard to replicate some of the regeneration findings, calling into question its use as potential therapy. Okay, they still need to study. Ambrosia, plasma, and the FDA. Ambrosia. I believe that's a kind of apple. I don't know why that pops up. It looks a lot like Ambrosia, the kind of apple. Ambrosia Plasma and the FDA. In 2016, Jesse Karmazine began offering infusions of young whole plasma as a way to help beat aging without published evidence that the treatment worked. Yeah, that's a no-no. The FDA tends to not like that very much. By the end of 2018, Ambrosia, the U.S. startup he founded, which charges $8,000 for 1 liter or a discounted $12,000 for 2. Oh, aren't they so nice? What a nice discount. That's crazy. Making some bank and then has no studies behind it. I can see why the FDA was pissed about that. The FDA can do some shady fucking shit sometimes, for real. I'm not a fan of some FDA things, but other times it's like, you should probably prove that this shit works before you go charging people $8,000 for this shit. Yeah. So let's see, had open clinics in 5 U.S. cities, but in February of last year, this last year being 2019, the FDA issued a general warning to consumers. Plasma infusions from young people provide no proven clinical benefit against aging or its diseases, and as with any plasma product, the infusions could pose risks. The company wasn't warned first by the FDA. It came out of the blue, says Kamazine, who ceased operations out of caution to understand the FDA's position. That was probably smart, because, you don't want to piss them off more than that. Last October, after an 8-month hiatus, Ambrosia reopened as a scaled-back operation with a clinic in San Francisco. As Karmazine sees it, the law is on his side. Plasma is an approved drug. This treatment is just an off-label one, which is allowed. That is true. Off-label treatments are absolutely allowed. The off-label treatment, for example, for Cialis, is a decreasing in blood pressure, and that happens. Some doctors do that. A lot of doctors won't, but some will absolutely do that, and it's not against the law for them to do that. And while the FDA statement says that procedures such as his should be performed under an active investigational new drug IND application, this isn't the same as saying they are required to be. Well, I mean, I would do it if they say you should do this. If the FDA says you should, then you should. You probably should. Ambrosia's approach irks many scientists trying to methodically translate the effects of parabiosis into therapies to slow or reverse aging. It is unfortunate, says Amy Waggers of Olivian, when scientific work and Ambrosia's approach become conflated. I think the FDA did the right thing, she says. Meanwhile, Karmazine says he still plans to publish the results of a clinical trial of customers given infusions that compares their biomarkers before and after. It wasn't placebo-controlled. That still doesn't discredit the study, but you do want it to be placebo-controlled. But first, he is getting the company back on his feet. Okay, well, there's a drama with them. So this is what the infographics show is talking about here. It is a thing. It was a real thing, and it still is. They're still studying this real thing. This was in 2020, but in 2020, they were just getting the studies together. Somebody had just published that, yeah, in fact, transfusion of plasma from young people's blood into old people who are developing mild Alzheimer's stops the Alzheimer's from developing. And they had a study proving that. So that's fucking sick. And could be the reason this conspiracy theory regarding adrenochrome. Notice adrenochrome wasn't mentioned anywhere in this article. But when you have studies from 2004 from Mr. Hoffer claiming that adrenochrome is being used or is being studied, has been used effectively to help cure cancer. And then you have other people saying, well, we take blood plasma from young people and we put it into old people, and that also helps a lot of the de-aging, and especially with the neurodegenerative disorders. That's not the right word. Neurodegenerative. I don't think that is a real word. But, it sounds good, so we'll say it. Yeah, neurodegenerative disorders. Sure, let's go with that. Anyway, in any case, I'm not going to go look for the actual word, but you know what I'm saying. You get these two combined with an already present conspiracy theory that people have to torture young children to get adrenochrome. Yes, and now you can kind of see where maybe these things kind of got mixed up in people's minds, right? Or people already had the idea, and then things like this come out, and they're like, well, there you go. See, that's why elites are taking kids and draining them of blood, plasma, that thing, the other thing, whatever, because it helps with de-aging and neurodegenerative disorders, right? So I don't care if neurodegenerative isn't a word. It sounds damn good, and it should be a word. So I'm going to patent it. That's my word. Oh, it is. Neurodegenerative diseases. Oh, that's why it sounds good, because it is the right word. Okay, well, look at me. I remember the right word this time. Okay, so anyway, what they're talking about in this infographic show is a thing. It's a thing.
And yes.
Oh, pop you over to the YouTube screen. We're going to go back to it.
This is really happening. Sometimes also called parabiosis, young blood transfusions take a seat beside cryonics and head transplants as semi-scientific attempts to pursue immortality. The fact is, very few people want to die, and the rich even less so, seeing as they've got it pretty good as it is. Pandering to wealthy old people's fear of mortality is the entire business model of Ambrosia LLC, the creepily named startup created by entrepreneur Jesse Karmazin. It is worth noting that while Karmazin claims he's a medical doctor, the exact nature of his supposed medical credentials has never really been made clear. Ambrosia LLC offered a unique service, living beyond your years with regular paid blood transfusions. Karmazin wasn't just promising smoothed wrinkles or slight improvements to your quality of life either. In one interview, he claimed that what the company was offering was pretty much close to immortality. Count Dracula.
Oh, that fucking advertisement, or the Dracula
would be inclined to agree. Before being shut down by the FDA for its shady business practices, more on that later, Ambrosia LLC claimed to be up and running in 5 different clinics across the United States, with locations in Houston, Omaha,
God, I didn't really need to read that article, because this guy just went right the fuck over it. Like, he's did a better job than I did. But at least you know now. You've seen it in The Guardian. This dude isn't making this up, yeah.
Tampa, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. The company offered their wealthy, sanguinarian clientele a liter of teenage blood, all purchased from medical blood banks, for $8,000. 2 liters for $12,000. That's $4,000 off the second liter. What a steal! They even took payments on PayPal, though whether the kind of person in the market for $12,000 of human blood uses PayPal is an open question. Ambrosia began holding its first independent clinical trials in 2017, testing whether its business model really provided any kind of meaningful health benefit. Tellingly, the results of this study were never actually made public, but Karmazin went public to assure potential investors and customers they had nothing to worry about. While this raised eyebrows among medical experts already feeling dubious about the benefits of Karmazin's business, rich elderly weirdos were extremely interested in what he had to say. According to the former chief executive officer of Ambrosia LLC, David Cavalier, the company received over 100 inquiries about the treatment from prospective customers as soon as their first website launched. As the months passed, Ambrosia truly opened for business, and more details emerged about their round of clinical trials. There had been 81 participants in the trials, and by September of 2017, the company had served a further 69 paying customers. The ages of these customers ranged from as young as 35 to as old as 92. Even high-profile billionaires, like PayPal's Peter Thiel, have expressed interest in undergoing a young blood transfusion. But the science surrounding Ambrosia's work is still extremely shaky. In public statements about the dealings of the company, Jesse Karmazin has always been unsettlingly vague. Speaking about the results of the clinical trials, he said, "Some patients got young blood and others got older blood, and I was able to do some statistics on it, and the results looked really awesome, and I thought this is the kind of therapy that I'd want to be available to me." Assurances that the results looked awesome didn't do much to assuage the fears of Karmazin's and Ambrosia's critics. Researchers like Irina Conboy called the treatment Ambrosia was offering dangerous, citing adverse side effects experienced by patients and saying that the company quite likely could inflict bodily harm on its clientele. Michael Conboy, a cell and molecular biologist at the University of California, Berkeley, said the whole idea of rejuvenating blood transfers reeks of snake oil, also saying there's no evidence in my mind that it's going to work. Now, why it all came crashing down for Karmazin and his vampiric startup. In February of 2019, the FDA came out with a devastating condemnation of young blood transfusion, releasing the following statement.
We already kind of heard about this here. I'm going to pop ahead a little bit.
as a potential escape from their impending demise. Critics have unsurprisingly accused companies and events like this of taking advantage of elderly and uninformed people's fears and desperation for profit. Not that taking advantage of desperate people has ever stopped con men before, from the classic snake oil salesman of the Old West to salesmen selling deadly radioactive Radithor tonic to the unsuspecting public in the early 20th century. While this might seem like a brand new health fad invented by bizarre Silicon Valley hucksters, the seeds of this idea have been around for a long time. And while what Ambrosia was offering was virtually useless, its core ideas do have some basis in scientific fact. The term parabiosis was coined by physiologist Paul Burt all the way back in the 19th century as part of his work with animal circulatory systems. The name means living beside and refers to the anatomical joining of two organisms, in this case a young blood donor with an older, richer recipient. One, in theory, helps the other. The groundwork for later research in this extremely niche field was laid further in the 1930s by Cornell University biochemist and gerontologist Clive McKay. Clive dedicated a lot of his time to researching the study of aging and found that caloric restriction through shifting their diets helped aging rats live longer. McKay found this fascinating and decided to research whether rat aging could be halted or at least slowed by any other means. That's when he started sewing rats together. In an experiment that would make Dr. Frankenstein or that weird dude from the Human Centipede proud, McKay and his assistant sewed two rats, one older, one younger, together by the skin on their sides.
And we already heard about this too. So I already gave you the skivvy on this.
Dr. Rando's theory was that the young blood awakened dormant stem cells and stimulated a youthful rate of cell division. Interestingly, the process actually goes both ways. The younger mice in this equation seem to have grown prematurely old after receiving old blood from their elderly mouse counterparts. Their tissue regeneration slowed down and their stem cell multiplication rate also saw a huge reduction. Harvard researcher Dr. Amy J. Wagner's later also found that young blood helped rejuvenate the hearts of old mice. And over at Stanford in 2011, Dr. Salvieda found that the same was also true for the brains of old mice. When young blood was introduced into the system, the hippocampuses of the old forming a complete circulatory circuit, rather than just having small quantities of blood injected into them. Also, the fact that all of these studies have purely been conducted on mice also throws in serious barriers for the research's applicability to humans. And even when these methods are applied to humans, if they theoretically were successful, there would still be huge risks to the health of patients. Not only are infection, inflammation, and rejection always a risk in blood transfusions, especially in transfusions without professional medical oversight, causing unchecked stem cell multiplication and growth can come with its own dangers. Irina Conboy pointed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true, but people get blood fusions all the time. That's not an issue. I don't know why they're making that out to be as big of an issue as it is. My dad had to do regular blood transfusions because of his leukemia. And this is, yes, it can be very serious. Like, you have to have a doctor do it for obvious reasons. But if it's like you're going to die or do this, they do this. So, yeah, the risks are there. The risks are decreasing every day. But in a environment with professionals, it's not that risky. Not as risky as this guy's saying.
Pointed out the fact that this could cause incidences of cancer to rise massively in patients of young blood transfusion that would truly defeat the point of a process meant to score its customers longer to eternal life. After explaining all this to the rich people who've summoned you here for your blood, you've seriously ruined their party. It's a real shame because you didn't even have a chance to try the hors d'oeuvres before being escorted out and sent home. Shame. Real shame. In the end, there really are no easy ways to buy yourself into eternal life. Maybe having a good diet, reducing stress, and exercising is your best bet. Thanks for watching this episode.
That is a good bet. Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing all those things for sure. So all this guy was really explaining, I already explained it in the article. I kind of fucked it up, which is a bummer. Next time I'll just watch the infographics. I need to trust him because he always does such a good job of explaining shit. But in any case, this is a thing. Yes. They are studying this, and they're continuing to study this, and they do have tests that say, yes, this can work. The one test that we read was Alzheimer's, right? They can slow down the process of Alzheimer's by injecting not blood, but plasma. Also note, that's not adrenochrome, neither. But this could be where the idea of, oh, rich people taking young people, young children, became a thing, okay? Now, we got some other videos I want you guys to check out. This is Woman claims missing daughter was tortured for the drug adrenochrome. This is on Dr. Phil. I haven't watched this yet. So let's see what mom here has to say about this.
My mom has a lot of theories on what happened to Jesse, and it seems like every time I talk to her, there's a new theory, there's someone else involved. My mom's theories are she thinks a cult kidnaps people every full moon to sacrifice them.
My investigation has revealed that this is all linked to a ritual. I believe somebody in a cult was drugging my daughter Jessie for a year before she went missing. I believe that she was killed June 20th, 2016, because it was a full moon and the summer solstice at the same time, and then the next day was Lilith. Lilith is a holiday that the occult does celebrate, and it requires a human sacrifice. I had a person say to me that if I looked around at the environment and looked at the seasons, I would see a pattern. And as I looked and did more research, realized that it was very specific and that people went missing on very specific days throughout the whole year.
My mom thinks everything's connected to other missing persons cases. Like it's a big web. A lot of the times she'll say things like, I know I sound crazy, but it just started getting too out of control.
I believe that Jessie was tortured for the drug adrenochrome. Adrenochrome is a chemical that our body produces when we are extremely fearful or have...
I do want to point out that that's not true. We already went over this. Adrenochrome, your body doesn't make adrenochrome. Your body makes adrenaline. And when you take adrenaline out of the body and it oxidizes, meaning it touches the air, that's when you get adrenochrome. Yeah, so that is incorrect what she just said right there.
A lot of distress. It gives you strength. It gives you vitality. And the people that killed Jessie are harvesting that from other people. And when you drink it, it gives you euphoria and power. My gang member told me later that he had a video of her death. He told me that Jessie had been killed, that her body had been put into a barrel and set on fire. The police do have a part of that video. I believe that the police are protecting her killer.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's intense.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this right. You believe that there is a cult in the area, and that because of the date and time and the seasons and the full...
You know, I got to say one thing. I feel really bad for this woman. This is just horrible. Not only is it brutal to just have your daughter go missing and never see her again, but then to involve yourself in all of this and be surrounded with it every day, these ideas, like, that's pretty brutal. She's in a bad place, and that really sucks, you know. That could have an effect on her mental health, obviously, which is going to affect the way that she thinks about certain things. It is worth saying, you know, when you're surrounded by that much brutality, you know, it's going to have it's going to color the world around you in a particular shade, and everything is going to have that shade connected to it. If that makes sense, it's going to have an evil connotation to everything you see in life, you know?
Full moon, that whether that has any significance to anybody else or not, it does to this group.
That is correct. I have talked to people that were there when Jessie was murdered that said that there is that video and that that's the reason that they did do it. And
okay, you say you've talked to people that were there.
Correct.
And have you turned those names over to the police?
I have not, because I just recently got those names.
Okay.
So is it gang members or is it a cult?
It's a cult.
But then you were saying that it's gang members as well.
There's some people from every walk of life in there.
Well, I'm saying this theory, I haven't even heard this one before.
This is the same theory.
Well, it's like, I feel like you always have a different one.
That's because you don't come and talk to me at home. There's a video of Jessie's death out running around all over town. They're showing it at parties. They think it's funny. I mean, it's very,
But you've so infiltrated this, why has everybody seen it but you?
Not everybody's seen it. Very
it's
select
all over
people.
town. It's been shown at parties.
They are showing it at parties. So.
But yet you haven't seen it?
No, I have not seen it myself.
Now, the police captain also told us that we have never had a case involving the drug adrenochrome. We've never even heard of it until Dr. Phil producers brought it to our attention. Now, the gang presence in Wenatchee is currently active, but a very low boil, and they say there is no cult presence in Wenatchee area whatsoever.
Okay, so there you go. That's only a little snippet, which is a bummer, but that's all you're going to get. I think you got to go find the Dr. Phil show to get the whole thing. It is interesting when you go down to the comments here. She doesn't sound crazy at all. The daughter needs to listen more. Okay? Your mom is not crazy. She's so powerful to even share her story as bold as she did. Okay? I believe her. They put her on Dr. Phil to make her look like she's crazy. They do know what's happening. Y'all should also look into these stuff. Protect yourselves and your kids. Plot twist, she's right all along. I'm not selectively doing anything. I am just going one after the other. And these are all the highest rated, some of the highest rated comments. This mother knows exactly what happened to her daughter, 100% truth what she claims. They're running these episodes to make the people who believe in adrenochrome look crazy. She doesn't seem crazy to me. There's no way I'd ever go against my mom on national television and make it seem like she's crazy, especially if it had something to do with my sister's death. Shake my head. I wonder how much they paid her to go against the grain. So, there you have it. Oh, Dr. Phil, you're in the cult. Well, I had to point that out. It seems like everybody is agreeing with the mom here. That's interesting. Like I said, I've never seen the video. And I can totally agree that her daughter is out of line. Like, you should talk to your mom about this. Dr. Phil is not the place to do this. I also agree with a lot of people when they say Dr. Phil's a douche. I don't think he's a 100% douche, but his entire shtick was bringing mentally ill people onto stage and berating them in front of groups of people. And which is never a good idea. That's how he got famous. And in some cases, he does help people, but in other cases, he really didn't. In other cases, he just makes people look fucking stupid. And some of these people, like this woman, well, she agreed to come on. Of course, she agreed to come on because she thinks she has found this grand conspiracy that the world needs to understand. You know, but she's in a really bad place. Regardless of whether you think she's right or wrong, makes no difference. She's in a really difficult place in her life right now. The last thing she needs is to be on Dr. Phil and have Dr. Phil telling her, you know, you're completely full of shit. Have her daughter in front of her saying, Mom, you're fucking crazy. And then having that on television for the rest of their lives. And her daughter is young. Young people make stupid decisions. That's a stupid decision to agree to have your parents come on this show and to stand against them and do this. I think that's stupid. I would never do that to my parents, no matter what kind of shit they believed in. I would not be facilitating them being made fun of on live television in front of Dr. Phil. So I understand where people have very bad feelings about Dr. Phil, because that is what he's doing to some extent. He is taking advantage of these people and made millions of dollars off of it, tens of millions, hundreds of millions possibly. But you can separate all those things and you focus on what the mom's saying. And, you know, just giving you my honest opinion, she sounds like she is in a lot of pain. And that she doesn't sound like she has evidence to show. If you're on Dr. Phil, you show the evidence. You're on Dr. fucking Phil. It's a national show. This is the time to start bringing out names, bringing out dates, bringing out information, proof, you know, evidence of it. Not, oh, I have evidence. You don't say, oh, I have evidence. You say, no, here is the evidence. Let me show you the evidence. Not that, oh, I know or I've heard. It's, here's the video. Here's the people that I talked to. Here's their names. Here's where they live. Here's the name of the cult. Here is where they operate. Here's a whole list of people who are involved. You know, so that's the thing, right? I just have to say that about that. But this is an instance of somebody who heavily believes in this and proof that there is a lot of people online that heavily agree with this, right? I mean, the comments just keep going and going and going. As far as you go, it just keeps going, right? Let's just keep going down and pick a random one. She is telling the truth. I feel sad for her. I cannot imagine the pain she is going through to lose a child like this. And this guy's quoting Dave Chappelle. The worst thing you can call somebody is crazy. It's dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. Maybe their environment is a little sick. And let's be honest, this woman is wasting her time. She's trying to expose evil to people that practice the evil. Dr. Phil is going to turn the comments off as soon as he realizes we can't be manipulated. Classic gaslighting. Well, that didn't happen. That was 4 years ago. That comment aged very poorly. I like how Dr. Phil acting like adrenochrome hasn't been around for years or even talked about. So there you go. Lots of people believing in this. And here's the thing I do want to point out. I highly doubt all of these people are QAnon conspiracy theorists. I want to point that out, and I'm going to come back to that here in a minute. But there's a video on somebody who claims their child was taken and tortured for the sake of adrenochrome. We're going to get into another video that's slightly related, not adrenochrome, but it is an interesting video in the vein of what we're talking about here. Hollywood Special Report, Hollywood Child Abuse. Okay, let's pop it up.
Many of the adults in there know each other and are exchanging information about certain kids. It's frightening.
You got to realize how many studios may have protected people that they knew what they were doing wrong. They don't want to get rid of people because they're making money for them.
In the city where dreams are made, we now know fame can come at a price. Power and money can buy silence. Even a conviction for child abuse doesn't necessarily preclude you from the party.
I've heard many stories of kids going to an agent who can control their career and put them into auditions. And so the agent's spending time alone with the child. They're able to sort of, unfortunately, get them away from parental supervision. And then they take advantage of these kids. And it's more common, I think, than we can even imagine.
If you'd asked me when I was 5 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was I wanted to be famous.
Nathan Winters was 11 when he starred in his first film.
Some of the cast and crew came to my mom and said, you know, Nathan and Victor's interaction on set is not okay. There is something going on.
Director Victor Salva had been a friend of Nathan's mum.
So we know this guy, Victor Salva. This is the dude that made Jeepers Creepers.
Since Nathan was 6, she made props for his movies.
The clown's ready, they're here.
Clown House, financed by Francis Ford Coppola, was his first feature film. And behind the scenes, something awful was happening.
His grooming process was developing my love and trust, and developing my parents' trust. And so essentially he became a close friend of the family, and it turned in from like, you know, well, how about I take Nathan for a few hours tonight, you know, give you guys a break, and then that eventually within a year turned into full weekends. The first time that I remember there being any kind of touching or abuse, I was staying the night at his house, his apartment, and we were watching movies, and one of the movies he put on to watch was Jungle Book, and started talking about Mowgli's loincloth, and said that he could make me one. So he got 2 bandanas and tied them together and made this loincloth, and as he's tying them, he's like fondling me, and that's like my first memory of when the abuse started, and you know, eventually it progressed over the next 5 years. Videotape all of it. I mean, it was full blown.
When they found out, Nathan's family went to the police, and Salva was eventually sent to prison.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't continue to describe it, because I've read about it, and the things that this guy did to that kid is absolutely horrific. I mean, as if that itself wasn't bad enough, right? That right there was enough to land your ass in prison for good reason. It gets even worse than that, so I'm glad they didn't get into it.
He had a nice, expensive lawyer team. There was people watching us. And again, I think that there was no intent other than to make it aware that we were being watched and to intimidate us and hopefully scare us off.
As a convicted paedophile, Victor Salva is on the sex offenders register, but it hasn't stopped him having a successful career in movies.
Powder. He made the movie Powder, which is a bummer because Powder was such a good movie. Everybody that watched that in the 90s bawled their eyes out. That was such a big movie.
Talk about him like he's some kind of a phantom.
Powder, one of the scripts he wrote in prison, was distributed by Disney's Buena Vista Pictures.
What's your name?
Powder.
And
He's
of
also
course,
made the Jeepers Creepers franchise.
Again, one of my favorite horror movies.
I was told at 12 that I'd never work in that industry again. basically blackballed for telling the truth. He's been coddled completely by certain members of Hollywood, and big names in Hollywood have been backing him and throughout the entire process. It just seems like there's like an exclusive club, and Victor's a part of that club.
People throw money at the problem. Whether it's paying the person off or hiring a team of lawyers, powerful people use money as a shield. This is why a lot of these people just were silent. It's a very hard and powerful thing to fight.
Child abuse experts say they treat 200 to 300 cases of sexual abuse in Los Angeles every year. As part of a 2-month operation targeting child predators in Southern California, LA police made 238 arrests in 2016.
It takes that inner strength to come forward. Now with children, it's that inner strength that, you know, it's not the same as with an adult.
They feel like they've done something wrong, and they feel guilty, and it's very difficult to come and talk about it because you're not even sure you're a victim.
Hollywood might not like talking about it, but it doesn't take a lot of digging to find even more examples of how it often has selective amnesia when it comes to some of the past behaviour of those it chooses to welcome into the fold.
If we look
that is true. Victor Salva is just one example. I mean, you can think of Kevin Spacey. Brendan Fraser was molested when he was a young man in Hollywood. He's came out recently about that.
Historically, what's been going on? I mean, how long ago was it that Mel Gibson was completely derided in this town and is now being lauded for his work? And we've seen it, you know, we've seen these scandals for Roman Polanski and for Woody Allen. We've seen these scandals become very public.
Yeah, Roman
and
Polanski.
Then a few years passes and they're being given money for more projects.
The Harvey Weinstein scandal.
There's the OG bad guy.
Shows how the industry can turn a blind eye, exposing how those close to him appear to have been complicit in protecting the producer, keeping quiet about accusations of sexual assault and rape, which Weinstein denies. There's been a domino effect of people coming forward with allegations of misconduct. Others who have been accused include Tyler Grasham, an agent for one of the stars of Stranger Things, who was fired following claims he raped an 18-year-old. And with allegations mounting, Kevin Spacey has apologised to actor Anthony Rapp for sexual harassment when he was 14. And it's prompted questions over why Roman Polanski continues to be decorated with industry awards despite a conviction for raping a 13-year-old. Power that comes with fame seems to make some untouchable.
I think fame ultimately corrupts. You know, I think a lot of famous people will say that they don't change when they become famous, but people change towards them when they're famous. And the famous people that I've known, I've hung up with, they live in a very weird world where everything they say is hilarious, people are running around after them all the time. It's naturally and ultimately corrupting in some way. You're not seeing the world in a normal way, so your whole level of what is right and wrong ultimately adjusts.
In 2004, actor Brian Peck was convicted of sex with a child. But just 2 years later, he was given a role on this kids' show, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Do you like the design?
3 words. Hit the us.
Let's take a short break.
He's since been working as a dialogue coach on anger management.
Stay away from everybody.
Speaking to someone familiar with the show, we were told the decision to hire Brian Peck came down to Charlie Sheen himself. An investigation was actually carried out after a complaint was made by one of the crew who learned about his background. The recommendations were, though, because some time had passed, he was going to be allowed to stay on set providing no children were present, and his time off set would be limited to Charlie Sheen's trailer.
I mean, you got to realize how many studios may have protected people that they knew what they were doing wrong, you know, that knew it, should have got rid of them a long time ago. And, you know, so these are corporate situations that they don't want to get rid of people because they're making money for them, so they don't want to get rid of them. So they keep them even though they're victimizing people.
Different strokes it takes, different strokes to move the world.
Todd Bridges, who starred in one of the 70s biggest sitcoms, was molested by his publicist.
Oh, wow.
At the time that it was going on, from 11 to 12, I didn't know what I was. You know, because, you know, you're a little kid, you don't have any idea what you are. I had never had sexual encounters or anything, so when that man did that to me, you know, he grew me very well. Secrets is what kills. Secrets will kill you. You can't hold secrets inside you. That's what destroys you. I'm one of the few children, you know, that have, you know, got rid of it and still around. Most of my proteges have died or they committed suicide or OD'd, you know, because they couldn't get over it and stuff that happened to them.
Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, two of the biggest child stars of the 80s, both said they were abused by paedophiles during that time. Before his death, Haim claimed he'd been raped aged 11. On social media, Feldman now says it's high time those who knew speak up.
I know that there's thousands others that have experienced what I've experienced in the entertainment industry. I also know that there's peers of mine who know exactly what I'm talking about and know all the details, but have been afraid to come forward with their own truths. I am using this to draw a line in the sand, to say to the Hollywood community, we are better than this.
But will what's happening in Hollywood now be enough of a catalyst to finally force the film industry to oust its abusers?
Personally, I'd like to see responsibility with anyone working with children or a child with an extensive background check. It goes back to where the industry or where the company draws the line.
Powerful people have a responsibility for the people they employ. I think it's they should have systems in place to protect the people that are working for them. That's responsible management.
Whether you're a woman or a male or a child or an adult, if you're being abused, and we should, as victims and survivors, should all band together and stick together, and really there's strength in numbers, you know. So I'm really hoping that through this exposure, more people will come forward.
We just have to look at what's going on with young women. We know they're not being protected. So what makes us think that anyone else is being protected? This is opening up, I think, a big can of worms for Hollywood.
I think there are a lot of people who probably have not said their experiences, but eventually I think they will. Once they feel safe enough and they realize that nothing's going to happen to them.
The script has been ripped up. Now the focus is on Hollywood itself. Before it can tell other people's stories, it's now under increasing pressure to act on its own dark reality.
Okay. So, yeah, that's all pretty, you know, dark, brutal stuff. I also wanted to point out, you know, there has never been no Me Too movement for children in Hollywood. And as far as Harvey Weinstein goes, I'm going to pop over here. As far as Harvey Weinstein goes, he's out. I don't know if anybody knows that. Him and Bill Cosby are both out. They're free. And they had their convictions overturned. So neither one of them are in prison anymore. This is a video here. We're not going to watch it, but I'm going to link it in the comments for you. Corey Feldman, this is his actual rundown, claims another interview of him claiming his abuse, what happened to him, right? So, yeah, we're going to link that in the description. So I bring that up, those last two videos, right? The first video I bring up to go over the young blood in old people thing, that is a potential thing that's being studied, okay? That could be a way in which this conspiracy went from, oh, people are, you know, wealthy people, old people, anybody taking adrenochrome from children, to elites in Hollywood, to people are using adrenochrome from young kids to help the anti-aging process. That's a part of the modern day conspiracy theory. And this was a very prominent thing that was being studied from 2011, 12, when it first got released, to nowadays is still being studied as potential treatment for anti-aging and helping prevent Alzheimer's and stuff like that, which is really cool. But you can see how that could have gotten combined with the conspiracy theory to create the modern day conspiracy theory of, hey, they're actually taking adrenochrome from children to help with anti-aging and immortality processes, right? And then I showed you the second video. The second video was the mom who actually said, you know, my kid was kidnapped and murdered for adrenochrome. She didn't give any evidence. We didn't get to watch the whole Dr. Phil thing because he cut it short. It didn't seem like Dr. Phil was very convinced, but everyone in the comment section was. Everybody in that comment section saw the same video you and me said, and they said, oh no, I 100% believe her. You know, even though she didn't come to the table with any evidence that we saw in that particular video, which that would be the point in time to do it, is when you're on Dr. Phil, right? Then I showed you that video, and then I'm linking the Corey Feldman video to show you that regardless of what's happening with the adrenochrome conspiracy, there is, and it has been, it's an own conspiracy theory. And I say conspiracy theory in quotes because this one is pretty goddamn legit, that there is absolutely people in Hollywood. I don't know if it's necessarily all of Hollywood, but there is people in Hollywood that are doing things to children, a lot of times get away with it, and even when they don't, they continue to have very lucrative careers. And there's numerous examples of this, right? It's only recently that people have been held feet to the fire and actually having to take responsibility for what they've done after convictions. You know what I'm saying? We're at the point with our society where we had a whole Me Too movement for women, the Time Is Up movement for women in Hollywood. And little kids have been having this happen to them for God knows how long. I mean, we had famous sitcom, child stars from the 70s that had this happen to them that a lot of people don't even know about. I didn't know that the kid from Different Strokes had that happen to him. No Me Too movement for that. So there is very clearly some sort of thing. And you can say it's a numbers game, like, well, the amount of people who are in the industry, you're going to have a certain amount of those people that are messed up people. And this is just that messed up people, and that's very plausible. Absolutely. I'm not saying that's not the case. I think you would have to prove to me that it isn't the case, that this is actually a bigger thing in Hollywood than it is any other demographic of people, right? If we had to compare, people working at McDonald's to people working in Hollywood to, say, white people, men, women, black people, whatever, get all these different demographics together and look at the numbers of how many of them are being accused of and arrested for raping and molesting children. Hollywood itself is probably going to be really high up there. And as far as like the Harvey Weinstein thing proved, that seemed to like go over everyone's heads, was all the women and men who were around Harvey Weinstein that knew what he was doing and only either chose to speak out when other people chose to speak out, or still haven't spoken out at all about it. They've said, yeah, he's a shitty person, and that's all they said. And it's like, well, weren't you there? Weren't you like his fucking friend for decades? And you never had anything to say about it. They were sharing, when that was all going down, I remember they were sharing this story about how Brad Pitt was such a badass because his girlfriend at the time, I don't remember if it was Jennifer Aniston or Angelina Jolie or somebody else, but somebody he was dating had a run-in with Harvey Weinstein. And he pulled Harvey Weinstein aside and told him he'd beat his ass if he talked to his girlfriend again. And everybody was championing him as this total badass, because he got in Harvey's face. And it's like, but if you knew he was doing that and you didn't say anything, you just came at him for your girlfriend, is he a badass? Why are you all calling this dude a badass if he was aware that he was doing this and he didn't say nothing to anybody? Now he's sharing the story of what a tough guy he is. And that's dope that he protected the people in his life, but he only protected the people in his life. He could have said something and protect years more of women that was happening to. You see what I'm saying? So in any case, we're still not at that level in society where people are throwing the gauntlet down and saying, fuck this. We want people in Hollywood to be arrested for this when it happens. We want serious investigations into this. We want a whole movement behind protecting kids. That's not happening. Okay. So it is very plausible where this very real world thing that is happening got, again, connected to this conspiracy theory, right? This conspiracy theory regarding adrenochrome now is, again, the two things that were kind of added to that conspiracy theory in the last 20 years was it's Hollywood elites and wealthy people are kidnapping children to get the adrenochrome, and you have to get the adrenochrome from young children in order for it to be life-saving or to decrease aging, to be reverse aging. I wanted to kind of give you an example of where possibly those two ideas came from. It's possible that the idea of adrenochrome as an anti-aging serum came from Dr. Hoffer's work in the early 2000s regarding cancer and adrenochrome, and the newer research that was happening throughout the 2010s and to this day on plasma from young people helping stop, reverse the aging for old people. That whole set of studies, which by itself isn't bad in any sense, could have gotten combined with the already present adrenochrome conspiracy theory that it's a hallucinogen and the only way to get it is to take it from the adrenal glands of small children. I couldn't find the source or any information that would give us an idea of where that part of the conspiracy came from. The idea that you have to terrorize a small child and you can only get it from the adrenal glands. What we've read articles where they straight up said you can get synthetic adrenochrome. You don't need to take it from a person. Okay. We know where the hallucinogenic aspect of it comes from. There's the first person and the only person who's done the most studying on adrenochrome. His entire career has been studying adrenochrome. He says it's an hallucinogen. He said he took it and it's an hallucinogen. And 40 years later, he still says, no, it's an hallucinogen. You all aren't studying it. You're just telling me I'm wrong because my methodology was wrong. But you're not studying it. Jesus Christ. I know what the hell's happening here. Coughing up a storm. Any case, that is, I don't know where that part of the conspiracy theory came from. I couldn't find anything in the way of you have to terrorize young children to get it out of their adrenal gland. I don't know where that came from. And then I showed you the other video to illustrate this is where the other part of the conspiracy theory, the modern day conspiracy theory could have came from, is there is fucked up shit happening in Hollywood with children. There is. And it's happened to numerous children stars. And it's been a thing for a while. We didn't even talk about the Disney kids. There's a whole, oh my gosh, there's whole videos all over YouTube, hour-long videos discussing what's happened to the Disney children because of adrenochrome. Yeah. Or not adrenochrome, excuse me, because of child abuse in Hollywood and how prevalent it is. That whole reality got added into the adrenochrome conspiracy theory as well. So I want to end this stream on this article from Wired. Okay. We're going to jump into this. So what I've tried to do with this stream is give you where all the sources for the adrenochrome conspiracy theory might have came from, right? Give you the most concrete sources I could find. We found the original studies from adrenochrome and what they found about the hallucinogenic properties, how it can potentially help with cancer, things like this. Okay, we went over all that and then went over what the conspiracy theory was, what people are saying about it, what these various articles and journalists where they say it comes from. And then we went over, where the different area, where that idea that you have to get it from small children and it's Hollywood elites that are doing it, where that idea could have possibly came from. I've connected it as much as I can because the reality is there is no source I can find as evidence that this is actually a thing. That's the reality. These articles are not lying when they say there's no proof of this. There's no proof that we have that this is actually happening. They're right. There is none. There's no evidence. I mean, not even proof. There's no evidence. Okay. And it just is what it is. I got to be honest with you about it. Right. And I didn't find any evidence or proof in the way. I'd found plenty of evidence and proof that there is like child abuse happening in Hollywood, 100%. But that isn't the same as adrenochrome, right? Same with we have proof. We have proof that they are studying that there is potential for young people and possibly even adrenochrome to help with de-aging, cancer, and things like this. We don't know if it's true, but we know it's being studied. That still has nothing to do with the overall adrenochrome conspiracy, but we can see where maybe these ideas were combined into the adrenochrome conspiracy because these are real things that are happening. They kind of get folded into the adrenochrome conspiracy, and next thing you know, bada bing, bada boom, you got the whole motherfucking thing going there, right? I showed you how the conspiracy evolved from the point 1950s when adrenochrome first came onto the scene to where it is now. And that's really what I wanted to kind of stress on. That was the whole point of this. Now, when it comes to evidence against any of this, that also does not exist. Okay. Being perfectly honest with you, what it is there's no evidence that this 100% isn't happening or evidence that this 100% is happening. Okay. There's, we have evidence that there's child abuse rampant in Hollywood, but there's no evidence that Hollywood elites are terrorizing young children and then harvesting adrenochrome from their bodies. We don't have any evidence of that. We have people who are saying this is possibly happening, but that's it. And we don't have evidence that this isn't happening either, by the way. We don't have anybody who's coming out and saying, here is proof that this is not happening. The proof of the negative, I guess, right? So, but that doesn't mean it is happening. Just because you don't have proof that it is happening doesn't mean that it isn't happening. And just because you don't have proof that it isn't happening or don't have evidence that it isn't happening doesn't mean that it is happening, right? Okay, a lack of evidence in either direction doesn't mean the opposite is true. You see what I'm saying there? Okay, now despite all that, we have plenty of people in this country that 100% believe it is happening. You saw the comment section on that Dr. Phil video. That was important for me to show you. That's the big reason I showed you the Dr. Phil video, was to show, here's this woman who says it's happening, and then here's a gigantic list of comments saying that they agree with her, that this is definitely happening, the adrenochrome. Okay. And then I've given you a couple articles. I want to read this last article that's telling you what journalists are saying about this. Okay. From Wired, the dark virality of a Hollywood blood harvesting conspiracy, a centuries-old anti-Semitic myth, is spreading freely on far-right corners of social media, suggesting a new digital dark age has arrived. That's quite the claim. A new digital dark age has arrived. That's a little doomer pilled right there, right? The Dark Ages were rife with plague, fanaticism, and accusation that Jews secretly fed off the blood of children. In 2020, we too are beset with plague, rampant medical misinformation, and a persistent rumor that global elites torture children to harvest the chemical adrenochrome from their blood, which they then inject in order to stay healthy and young. That's probably the best representation of the modern day conspiracy theory that I found in any of the articles, right? A favorite topic of interconnected QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy communities. Oh, here's that again. So-called adrenochrome harvesting long predates these groups. Oh, there we go. It's nice to see that because it's true. We've already established that. These other two articles did not go that far. Both of these articles connected QAnon and Pizzagate to the adrenochrome conspiracy. They both did that. Here it is right here, QAnon, subject of the related QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy communities. Just read this sentence. So-called adrenochrome harvesting has been a popular subject of the related QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy communities for a very long time. A favorite topic of interconnected QAnon and Pizzagate conspiracy communities, so-called adrenochrome harvesting long predates these groups. Just look at those sentences. They're the same fucking sentence. They're almost word for word. It's just a very slight rewording that says the exact same thing. Okay, now, I don't like it when I find this shit. I find this shit all day long on the internet whenever I'm studying topics. And for the record, it isn't just conspiracy theories topics. It's every topic. These quote-unquote journalists are just copying each other, dude. Okay, I want to put that out there because too many people think still nowadays. They still think these authors of these journals are out here doing investigative journalism. They're not. They're copying each other. They're fucking just copying each other's articles, okay? Who knows if any of these people, I already pointed to inconsistencies in some of the things that these people said, right? This idea right here that, where it is, that Hoffer's experiments on adrenochrome as a psychedelic have been largely discredited. That's not the case. Unable to ever replicate any of the initial findings. That's not the case. Nobody else has even attempted to. As far as I can tell, I can't find any other studies where they even tried to replicate the initial findings. You see what I'm saying? And then the assertion up here, earlier in this particular article, that this was a QAnon invented conspiracy. At least this article states that no, it was around before QAnon. This article says it wasn't. This article says no, it's a QAnon conspiracy theory. And again, this was a conspiracy theory in the 90s. You're saying that it's just patently false. That they say that. This at least states that it predates a group. But how many of these people are just copying shit from each other and the shit that they're saying is wrong? I'm just saying, like, that right there irks the fuck out of me. How that should be legal and that isn't plagiarism, It just mind boggles me, you know? It has, however, resurrected during the COVID-19 pandemic. Google Trends shows significant spikes in searches for adrenochrome in March and June of 2020. Okay, I mean, and here's the thing. Google Trends is going to show a significant spike in every search term in 2020. So again, this point right here, don't give a fuck. I mean, it's worth noting to say, okay, it resurrected during the COVID pandemic, but every search term was resurrected during the pandemic. We just went over this with my history of creepypastas video. By 2014, creepypasta as a search term went blue until 2020, right before it was about to go splat, it went poof, and it popped right back up. Like my sound effects. It popped right back up in 2020 because everybody was locked in their fucking homes. So everybody's researching a whole bunch of shit, including adrenochrome, but also creepypastas, you know? Just an important note to make. This means nothing. This whole thing right here. It's prevalent on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Reddit removed a dedicated adrenochrome subreddit on July 30th. On July 31st, conspiracy theorists plan to hold the first Child Lives Matter protest in Hollywood to expose child trafficking, advertising the event as references to hashtag adrenochrome. Again, we just went over this. There is plenty of evidence that there is maybe not child trafficking, but child abuse happening in Hollywood. We don't know that's connected to adrenochrome, though. Everything we've said that shows that, it said nothing about adrenochrome. So that's true. The adrenochrome harvesting conspiracy theory is a potent example of hidden virality. Interesting. Hidden virality. Let's see. Where did that pop up again? Didn't I tell you guys? The conspiracy theory is an effective illustration of hidden virality. Wow. The adrenochrome harvesting conspiracy theory is a potent example of hidden virality and the ways in which unpopular culture animates social media platforms outside of the mainstream view. And how marginalized cultures fuel social media platforms in ways that are not visible to the general public. This is just fucking trash. This is crazy. And this is Science Times. I'm sure it's Wired that copied Science Times. When is the October 25th, 2023? July 31st, 2000 shitballs. July 31st, 2020. So Wired did the first. And then 3 years later, these fuckers literally word for fucking word. That should be plagiarism. That journalist, who is this? Who wrote this? Caleb White. Oh, he's like a distant cousin of mine. Fuck you, distant cousin. You suck as a journalist. Do your fucking job and do your own research. Don't copy other people's shit. Dude, this shit pops up on the internet and, you know, it's just so annoying, dude. Stop being that. Dude, if you don't want to do your job, then get a new fucking job, bro. I just get so irritated with this shit. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. Okay, so I wanted to show that just how these articles just pop up and they copy each other. And I've showed this multiple times on my screen. It's crazy how these articles pop up, then they reference each other and copy each other. It's just continuous, right? I also wanted to point out this. So toxic social attitudes spread virally alongside hoaxes and disinformation. Adrenochrome harvesting isn't outwardly blamed on Jews, but on satanic and global elitist dog whistle terms for the far right. So now we're having it connected to anti-Semitism and QAnon and Pizzagate. So it's just the whole mess of baddies, right? So they're connecting it to the modern adrenochrome obsession as a permutation of blood libel, an anti-Semitic myth that pervaded Europe throughout the Middle Ages, and a mutated strand of medical misinformation. So you're going to have a very hard time convincing me of that, right? That they don't have any way to assert that, to be honest. We're going to read a little bit more down here, but they don't ever assert this, that this is in fact some sort of anti-Semitic thing. They're just connecting this conspiracy theory to anti-Semitism, and that annoys me and upsets me too. And we're going to get to what I think is the most important takeaway from all of this whole conversation here in a little bit, okay? But that's important to note. I want you to note that. The most effective conspiracy theories are built around kernels of truth. Adrenochrome is a compound that occurs in the body. Again, fucker. So again, that's not true. We know that. We researched this. It is true that it is a thing. It does not occur in your body. Okay, that other lady on the Dr.Phil episode, the one that believes in this, she said the same thing. Adrenochrome does not occur in your body. Adrenaline occurs in your body. When it oxidizes, it turns into adrenochrome. So she's wrong. They're wrong as well. Okay. but about which little scientific research has been done beyond a few studies in the mid-20th century on whether it could play a role in schizophrenia. That is important because, again, this goes in complete opposite of what they're saying here, right? Where they're saying, oh, no, it's been studied and it's been disproven. No, it hasn't. I told you guys, and I'm being honest with you, I looked for those studies. The only studies that exist on this are these studies they're talking about right there from Hoffer. The studies that are supposedly debunked. But nobody else has done any studies to debunk those studies. You see what I'm saying? The question transfixed the writers Aldous Huxley and Hunter S. Thompson. Okay, yada, yada. Nearly 20 years later, Thompson cast adrenochrome as a psychedelic that must be violently extracted from human glands in his novel Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. A scene that was immortalized in Terry Gilliam's 1998 film and the YouTube clip. That's the YouTube clip we watched. Thompson explicitly invoked in what seems to be the earliest recorded posts about adrenochrome harvesting on 4chan's X and poll boards in 2024. Again, we went over that in this article, said the exact same thing. Yeah, it brings up those exact same posts. In 2016, the same video was shared in a Pizzagate thread about the artist Marina, son of a bitch. Son of a bitches. Okay, increasingly outlandish claims. The next several months saw increasingly outlandish claims online. The Pixar film Monsters, Inc. Again, we went over that. These factions expanded their audiences in 2018, citing new investigations and circulating the rumor that a hoax website sold adrenochrome in exchange for cryptocurrency. Conspiracy filmmaker Jay Myers released a video, Adrenochrome, the elite's secret superdrug. While the original video has been taken down, it remains live on his backup channel and has been uploaded elsewhere online. In February, InfoWars featured a segment on adrenochrome, linking it to the Clinton Foundation via EpiPen manufacturers and to the highly controversial lung blood transfusion startup Ambrosia. Boom! Score, touchdown for Tony. I told you, that's where this came from. In this instance, it's InfoWars that connected Ambrosia, the blood transfusion startup, which was a pretty that part of this whole young blood studying that they're doing. Ambrosia was pretty iffy. That was like, they seemed like maybe they were just scamming people, right? But there's a connection that I've been saying this entire time. Somebody give me a fucking award for being amazing. I said this. This is where that part of the conspiracy theory came from, was the studying that was taking place in the 2010s to the studying for young blood being transfused into old people in order to make them younger. All that studying that's being done, that was the connection. That's where people got the idea that, this adrenochrome can make you younger. A month later, adrenochrome documentaries began to emerge on YouTube, followed by many smaller copycat productions, helping form a searchable foundation for the current day conspiracy. I will tell you that doesn't really exist. There is not a massive foundation for this. It's all been taken off YouTube if it ever existed. I'm assuming they're actually correct that it did exist. It got taken down just like this guy's video, probably just like my video. You see, Cutie Pie, why I said at the beginning of this stream, this video is probably going to get taken down, or I'm going to get fucked in the booty by YouTube or Twitch because of this nonsense. Okay, that's why I said that. The recent surge in interest can be traced to March 22, the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Celebrities posting photos of themselves stuck at home looking less camera ready were besieged on social media with accusations that they were suffering from adrenochrome withdrawal. That's just people being buttheads, but, By commenting on these posts, believers spread the adrenochrome hashtag to new eyes while harassing their targets. I don't know. I mean, people are a little thin-skinned, but harassment. But, this is what I'm saying. This is where they say the dark virality, or is that what they're calling it? The dark virality or viral something or another. What was the name they used for it? Hidden virality. Right? That's where the idea comes from. You're commenting on it. I'm showing you this video. Therefore, it's my fault that you all believe in this. The recent surge in interest. Oh, yeah, we already read that. Despite this increased visibility, conspiracy outlets accuse major social media platforms and media of plotting to suppress the truth about adrenochrome. Like, here's what I want to say. They're accusing you say accused major social media platforms and media of plotting to suppress. I don't know if the truth about adrenochrome, but this plotting to suppress, the accusation. Broski, didn't you just say earlier in this motherfucking shit Reddit removed a dedicated Adrenochrome subreddit on July 30th. Let's go down. Jay Myers released a video while the original video was taken down. You are suppressing it. You are suppressing it. Nobody's accusing you of shit. You are suppressing it. The media is suppressing it. And you are doing this. This is not an accusation. You guys are 100% depressing this shit. Suppressing this shit. Right? What do you know? Adrenochrome conversation continued and intensified on social media. Well, yeah, and I'm going to get into my important thoughts on this. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Despite claims of censorship, again, despite claims of censorship, are you fuckers not taking shit off the internet over this? Claims of censorship. What the fuck? Google Trends results showed that spamming celebrities' pages with mentions of adrenochrome was working, leading to a spike in search traffic and social media conversation. Again, they're putting this in the realm of COVID-19. Again, there was a spike in every single search possible almost during COVID-19 because everybody was locked in their fucking houses. So this goes through hidden virality, how it happens, it connects this article, why adrenochrome having a moment and what can be done. Okay. The pandemic has created unprecedented levels of mistrust and anxiety about inequality, yada, yada, yada. The best way for platforms to fight back is to take early action when something begins to go viral in hidden spaces. Early detection requires knowledge of where the conspiracy theories originate online and reliable measures of how they scale, and it needs to be followed by active promotion of authoritative content that can inoculate against the disinformation. I think that's a good idea. Authoritative content that shows that it's wrong. That's important, okay? Not shutting it down, okay? Taking it off the internet doesn't help. It doesn't fucking work. Tech companies must also get better at indexing images and memes. Platforming needs to identify disinformation within obscure medical topics that don't have much information and seek collaborations with experts who can get ahead of these trends with timely, relevant information. Well, I at least agree that if you want to prove something's wrong, then you should just come out and give the proof that it's wrong instead of taking it off the internet, right? Instead of censoring it. Which is this little article proved multiple times that that's what they're doing. They just gave us multiple examples of how they're censoring this conversation and then had the audacity to say, well, people are claiming. They're not claiming, you're doing it. They're pointing it out that you just pointed out that you're doing it. Shit for brains. Nobody's claiming anything. You're pointing it out. I'm pointing out to you what you're pointing out, But I do agree with them here. That's the correct way to fight against incorrect information, disinformation, misinformation, whatever you want to fucking call it, is provide the information that proves that it's false, right? The adrenochrome perception shows just how hard it is to combat data voids. Would a peer-reviewed study on adrenochrome's inability to reanimate aging global elites even impact the communities that spread these complete falsehoods? Probably not. Why do they say that? I don't understand that sentence. Probably not. They haven't done the study, Why don't you try doing the study first and see? To date, Pinterest has taken the most aggressive action against the adrenochrome hashtag, directing users to a page of medical misinformation when they search for the word in an effort to curb hidden virality. See, if it only directs you to a page telling you that this is misinformation instead of giving you what everybody else is saying about it, then again, that's censorship. You think that you're being coy here, but you're not. You're censoring. And yada, 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 commit to this, that. So this whole article I wanted to show you, one, because this article literally copies it word for word. It's literal sentence by fucking sentence, man, which is just irritating. It just really heavily, when you find things like this, and I find it all the time, and it's with every topic too, by the way. It isn't just conspiracy theories. I go to research fucking dinosaurs for a stream, and I find these journalists who are copying each other word for word. And when you got shit like that, it's just so hard to believe in anything you're saying. Your credit just tanks when it turns out you're just a bunch of fucking Caleb White, shit butt, fuck wiener head. You're just a lying sack of shit that can't do your job. So you're just copying other people who did the job before you 3 years later. And I don't mind calling you out about it. Get a new job, dude. Don't be a journalist. Don't copy other people's journalism and then pass it off as you wrote the article. You didn't do shit. You just copied other people's shit, And it just decreases the level of trust that I can have in the things that you're writing. And this is a point that I want to get across, okay? I've given you guys the most evidence that I can find to give you and shove into a now almost 3-hour stream on this whole adrenochrome conspiracy theory in terms of like where it comes from, who's giving us evidence of it. And you guys saw it. I put it out here for you. I can't find evidence that it's true, that it's really happening. I can't find that. Okay. I can find evidence of other similar things that are happening, child abuse in Hollywood. Okay. People are studying the effects of, and looking like it actually seems like it is possible that it works. Transfusing young people's plasma into old people does help reverse some amount of aging. Those are things. Adrenochrome could very well possibly be hallucinogenic. Adrenochrome might even be a potential cure for cancer. There's studies on those two things. There's no studies saying those two things aren't real, but there's studies saying those two things are real. And then the American Psychiatric Association is saying, no, these studies have shit methodology, so it's not true. Okay, fair enough, whatever. You do what you want with that. We already discussed it. But, you know, I found proof of other things that are similar to these studies. Okay, but I haven't found any proof that adrenochrome is actually being, Hollywood elites are kidnapping children, scaring them, terrorizing them, torturing them, and then harvesting their adrenal glands to create adrenochrome, because adrenochrome reverses aging and, you know, gives you a sense of euphoria and power. Okay, so haven't seen any evidence to prove that. Okay, and if I just found an article that said all that and then gave me all the links that I just gave you to all the videos and the articles and the shit and the things and the studies that I pulled up and all of that, you know, it's going to be hard. Generally, when I do these conspiracy theory videos, I like the audience to leave with a sense of wonder, like, ooh, it could be true, it could not be true, I don't know. But most of the time, that's because I'm doing conspiracy theory videos on whether or not Nick Cage is a fucking vampire. You know, I don't really give a shit if you believe in that or not. Personally, I don't give a shit if you believe in this or not. It makes no difference to me. You go on believing what you want to believe, bro. You can believe that big fucking pink donkeys fly out of the sky and shit out the babies everywhere. I really don't care. I don't know why I said that, but it could, anything like that. Just think of the craziest thing you want to believe in. I'm not the kind of guy to be like, oh, you fucking idiot. Like, I don't care. I'm an enabler, bro. At least I know who I am. I'm totally the kind of guy that says, yeah, sure, that's fine, bro. You believe in that. You do that. Okay. Like, this is entertaining as fuck. Like, can you believe this guy thinks that? Like, this is awesome. I would be like, dude, yeah, tell me more. Tell me more, guy. What do you believe in? I ain't going to stop you from believing in some crazy shit. I don't care. I'll enable your totally horrible beliefs and laugh at you about how you believe in this shit. So all I'm saying is I didn't see any evidence that proves this is actually the case. That's all I'm saying. And for me, that means that I don't believe in it. You can continue to believe in it. For one thing, I'm not going to treat you the way that these articles do, where you're a fucking stupid piece of shit for believing in it. I'm going to laugh at you, but I'm not going to laugh at you to your face and call you an asshole, right? I'm also not that kind of guy neither. I'm not a jerk. I don't like to bully people, okay? I do laugh about them behind their backs in the comfort of my own home with my girlfriend, but I don't sit here and shit on people in the real world to their friends, their family, in front of other people and try to make them feel bad about themselves, okay? But if you want to believe in this, you can. I'm just saying, I gave you as much evidence as I could find, and I didn't find any evidence that proves this is a thing. No proof, especially, but no evidence that even points to this is a real thing. In spite of all that, you saw the comments. You saw all the people that believe in it. And you got articles that I showed you, articles written about how all these people believe in it, okay? And they do. We saw the proof on that Dr. Phil episode, yeah? So, you know, they do. The articles aren't lying. So here's the thing. How can these journalists write all, and I do mean that, the air quotes and everything, journalists, go fuck yourself. Why can all these journalists write these articles about this shit and people still believe in it? It's because, one, look at your shit fuck article, Caleb. It's just a copy of everybody else's articles. You're not saying shit even remotely original. You're not even giving credit to the opposite articles. You're literally just, you're literally committing plagiarism with your bullshit article, so you can fuck off. What about Mr. Jennifer Walker Journey? It's kind of an interesting last name, but fuck yourself too. Yours is filled with all kinds of misinformation. You know, what did this one claim? Adrenochrome is in the body. It's not in the body. Adrenochrome is an oxidized variation of adrenaline, which happens in the body. Adrenochrome does not occur naturally in the body. She was wrong. Okay. She, again, also copied this whole little last bit comparing QAnon and Pizzagate, and copied the whole Monsters Inc. thing. I mean, again, this shit was happening sentence for sentence in the other article. Both these articles had the same thing. She inaccurately claimed, had an expert in her article that inaccurately claimed that Dr. Hoffer's research was largely discredited. It's not. It's not largely discredited, and they were never able to replicate any of his initial findings. Again, I looked for the studies that attempted to replicate his initial findings, and I found none. That does not exist. You are wrong. And then what was the other thing? There was a third thing that her assertion that this all started with QAnon. This is a QAnon conspiracy. It isn't. This was you literally have a link to you have a link to a movie from 1998 that has conspiracy theory in it. There was no QAnon in 1998. Yeah, well, maybe you can't find evidence due to censorship. No, yeah, I mean, possibly. Like, again, I'm going to get to that here in a minute, cutie. But yeah, you have an article here where she says a bunch of inaccuracies. So, Jennifer, you're out of here too. Oop, that was supposed to, yeah, you're out of here too. Go fuck yourself. You're gone. Okay. And then we get this article from Wired. Written by Brian Friedberg, who actually does correctly represent numerous things in it. Okay. He comes out and says, long predates. He makes a note. This is not invented by QAnon and Pizzagate. Okay. That's good. I'm glad he said that. He still did get wrong that this happens in the body, right? And what was he did get something else that was correct. There was a few things that he got correct. So there was some good information in this article, okay? But he's got a whole thing there. First, he starts with this attempting to connect adrenochrome to anti-Semitism. In what video, in any of the information we looked at, where did it say Jews? He's getting this from one single post from 2013 on 4chan and claiming that this is an anti-Semitic belief. So and gave us no proof of that other than that one fucking 4chan post. So, Brian, go fuck yourself. That's not proof of anything. That's such a minute amount of evidence for your claim. I reject it. You're giving me just as much evidence to support what you believe about adrenochrome as the people who believe in the conspiracy, which is pretty much next to zero. Okay. When it comes to your claims on this is anti-Semitic, your proof is just as much as their proof is. It's nothing. It's nada. It doesn't exist. You're just making shit up. So, Brian, you're fucking wrong. Fuck you too. I don't know why in the world you even took it there. Then there's a continuous attachment of this to QAnon and Pizzagate, which very well, for the record, I don't know QAnon. I know what Pizzagate is. I know what that was. I know what QAnon is. I don't know what they all believe. I don't know any QAnon people. That's not to say they don't exist. I'm just saying I don't know what they believe. I've never sat and talked with one. We've never shared a cup of coffee or a brewski and watched a baseball game. And I was like, so what do you think about them fucking all that QAnon shit? And he's like, oh yeah, I believe in all of it. Like I don't know these people. Okay. I don't have any of them in my life. I don't know anybody who believes in this shit. Okay. And that doesn't mean they don't exist. I'm just saying I don't know what they believe. And it's very much seems like they could believe in this, right? Because they do believe the Pizzagate stuff. They do believe in the elites trafficking children conspiracy, okay? Which, again, isn't the same thing as the child abuse in Hollywood. Okay, that's, child abuse in Hollywood, elites in our country trafficking children, two different, slightly different things. They're very close to each other. One could potentially mean the other's true, but this one we have a lot of evidence to support, the abuse in Hollywood. We don't have as much evidence to support the other, right? As far as I'm aware, I didn't look for that evidence in this stream because that's not what my stream's about. Yeah, I will be bringing that up here in a second, though, okay? But what I'm trying to say is we went through those Dr. Phil comments. There was nothing in there about Trump, about Democrats, about this, the other thing. There was no political nothing in there. It was just a bunch of people that said, I believe this woman when she says her daughter was killed to harvest adrenochrome. That's it. A lot of people saying, I believe there is some messed up shit happening in Hollywood. That's it. Okay. And you don't need to be a QAnon to believe in that. Okay. So they're claiming this conspiracy theory is a QAnon conspiracy theory. Some of them correctly claimed that QAnon invented the conspiracy theory. Every article, I couldn't find an article. I want to stress this to you. I could not find a single fucking article that did not connect this to QAnon. And this article is going a step farther and connecting this to anti-Semitism. Okay. Okay. So, you know, let's just think of a couple reasons why they might be doing that. I mean, we don't have to. We can think of one obvious reason. And, you know, I think we have more evidence for this than this guy, Mr. Brian here, has for his belief that it's anti-Semitic. He doesn't have a hell of a lot of evidence in any case at all that he presented in his article. Zero, zip, nada evidence, okay? We have evidence with his article and the other articles that we read that y'all are trying real fucking hard to connect this conspiracy theory to really nasty groups of people. Okay, and in some cases you're doing it in a way that it's completely false. We can prove that that one article, QAnon did not invent this conspiracy theory. It existed in the 90s. So that's bullshit, right? We can prove that. We literally have movies talking about it in the fucking 90s where there was ever, you know, back when Donald Trump was saying he wouldn't ever run for president. Yeah. So they're purposely, journalists are purposely connecting this conspiracy theory to QAnon, Pizzagate, and anti-Semitism now with this article, okay? They're doing that because it makes you not, now in this part, I don't know. This I don't have proof of. We have proof that they're doing that, and we have proof that they're incorrectly doing that in a lot of circumstances. My theory, not proof, no evidence, is they're doing that because they don't want you to believe in it. Because if you do believe in it, you're a QAnon, you're a Pizzagate believer, you're anti-Semitic, and nobody wants to be any one of those three things, let alone all three of those things at once. Yeah. Everybody knows the QAnon people are, whoop, whoop. You know, I have plenty of Republicans in my family. Some of the people I love that are the closest to me are Republicans, okay? And they don't believe in this QAnon shit. They're not QAnon. They don't walk around like Pizzagate shirts on or whatever the fuck y'all do. You know, they don't believe in this shit. Okay? Even a lot of Republicans that at least I know look at this QAnon shit and they're like, these guys are fucking Fruit Loops, yeah? They think that. So when you got a whole group of people that is considered nut jobs, what better way to discredit a conspiracy theory than to connect them to the nut jobs, to connect it to them, yeah? I'm just saying. And it's happening in every single article. I can't find a single article where they don't do that. And in some cases, completely incorrectly, provably false. They say that QAnon invented this, and they didn't. They just fucking didn't. It was in the 90s this shit was around. Why are you saying these things that are wrong? Okay. And then this article goes an even step further. This is what you're talking about, Cutie Pie. Cutie Pie, I can't believe you're still here. 3 hours later, and my beautiful girlfriend is still watching my stream. She's the only one watching my stream. You're so sweet. Thank you for the support, Cutie Pie. You're basically just listening to me bitch about silly things, but I appreciate you very much. Thank you. So get yourself a good girlfriend, everybody. Your life will be so much better. So you just can't have my girlfriend. So wait, where are you leaving? Where you think you're going, huh? You mean like to the store, right? To get like milk? That's where you're leaving to? Just as long as you come back with that milk. Oh, Hobby Lobby. Nice. Okay, get yourself some thread. Well, you can, go now. You certainly don't have to be here for 3 more hours listening to me bitch and piss and moan about this. Just so you're aware. But in any case, I appreciate you watching as long as you did. I would have tapped out a while ago. But in any case, because I am done. I am close to finishing, actually, because I need to get some food. I'm tired of listening to myself talk, for fuck's sakes. I need to be quiet. I need to practice some silence time. Yeah. So, in any case, this is what you were talking about, Cutie Pie. So this article goes an even step further. And of course, Caleb in our first article copied and plagiarized everything from this article because he's a fuckhead that sucks at being a journalist. This article, shit, I can't highlight stuff and have my chat up. I need to figure something out with that chat. I'll do it at some point in time. It'll happen one day. This article takes it a step further, as does Caleb, because he copied this article. It's taking it to the extreme. It is connecting this conspiracy theory with this phenomenon, this theoretical phenomenon that they're saying exists about hidden virality. And this idea that misinformation is going viral underneath everybody's noses, which for the record, I don't think is entirely a bad idea. Like that's completely discredited. Obviously it's not discredited, but it's not that I necessarily disagree with that. I think there's a potential for it to happen. I just don't think it's as big as a deal as they're trying to make it out to be in this article. In this article, they're acting like it's the fucking end of the world. Okay. They continue to reference how, you know, the little fucking fruit fly all up in my shit. They're continuously referencing this giant spike in adrenochrome being searched in 2020 during COVID and saying this is hidden virality. And it's like, well, it's not. We already went over this on a past stream. I went over this in this stream, and I'm going to go over it again for the second time now. I'm third time. I'm repeating myself three times now. Creepypastas went down in popularity, and in 2020 they spiked because everything spiked in 2020 because everybody was locked in their fucking homes. That's why people were doing this, not because this conspiracy theory is getting to unmanageable levels. In this article, they try to say we need to do something about this, and in the same article, they talk about they mention what's been done. Reddit has taken down the Adrenochrome subreddit, shut it down from happening completely. YouTube is erasing people's videos on it. And then this article has the audacity to say, and proponents of the theory are claiming that there's censorship. Well, shitball fucks, bro, you know, in your own fucking article, Brian. You fucking you talked about them censoring it in your own goddamn article. Two paragraphs up. You talked about motherfuckers censoring shit. I'm not a proponent of this theory, and it's very obvious that you're fucking censoring it. You know, I don't even need to believe in this theory to know it. You said it, Brian. Brysky, broha, shit for brains. You even said it in your own fucking article, bro. And then have the audacity to say that later on in the article. People claim. No, you are. You even gave us the evidence of it, dude. Like, that's so crazy, you know? And so in this article, it's taken it to the point where it's trying to make this an instance of this horrific hidden virality thing that is supposedly the death of the modern world almost, right? So, in going about how it needs to be further censored. You know, all I'm saying is when you take these articles at face value, just these 3 articles that I read, okay, which for the record, I added these 3 articles because they were actually the most what's the word? Well, we had 4 articles there, but they were the most, well structured. A lot of the other articles, I mean, they just said the same thing. A lot of these articles I just picked kind of randomly because other articles I found said the same fucking thing, okay? The reality is, this is why people still believe it. All that long speech was to get to this point. This is my main overarching point. People still believe in this conspiracy theory, regardless, I don't think that's a word or it's used improperly, regardless of the fact that there is no evidence that they can find for this theory, they still believe in it. Because you stupid fucking journalists, and the way you write your crappy articles, makes people convinced that it is a thing that you are trying to hide. You guys are connecting it with no evidence to anti-Semitism, and in some cases incorrectly attributing it to QAnon, okay? You're making it a whole poster child for this hidden virality movement that is a theory, not proof. I want to illustrate that point too. You have 0 fucking evidence that this is actually a thing. The evidence you show is the spike in adrenochrome searches during 2020, where there was a spike in every search in 2020. So that's completely not evidence. Your evidence is horseshit. It's a fucking fart in the wind. It's nothing. Yeah? You see? So your whole article is shite. In some cases, your articles are filled with inaccurate information because you guys aren't investigative journalists. You're just dudes that sit and write. And in some cases, like Mr. Caleb here, this fuckhead, he just copied Brian's article, And people look at your articles, they're they're complete copies of each other. They're all accusing people who believe in this conspiracy theory of being QAnon members. You're, in this article, pushing for censorship and then pretending like you're not. Like it's crazy for people to show that you and the media are pushing for censorship of this topic. It looks funky, Brian. That's all I'm saying. You got some shit on your shoes. Something smells a little funky. Check your shoes. That's all I'm saying, dude. This looks from the outside looking in fishy as fuck. Okay, now I don't think it is. I think Caleb is a dirty little fucking plagiarizer and a shit journalist. I think the other person who wrote that other article is equally a shit journalist that said numerous falsities, as did you, and a couple times. You said some correct things in this article, Brian. Good job for that. Golf clap for Brian. Okay, good job. But you also said some shit that was false. Okay, you said that adrenochrome happens in the body. It doesn't happen in the body. Because we went over the studies and I showed it to you. You know now better than Brian does because I showed you. It doesn't occur naturally in the body. It's the oxidization of adrenaline. That's what adrenochrome is. Okay. But you have incorrect information in your own article. And then you're connecting it to a reason why people should not be allowed to talk and discuss about this topic on social media. You give us instances of social media censoring it and then have the audacity to pretend like they're not later on in the article. You know, and this all seems so fucking fishy. Anybody who already slightly believes in this, you are the reason they continue to believe in it, Brian. I want you to know that. Okay. It is you being such a shitty journalist who's so amped up about censorship, who's so freaked out by this topic that you are connecting it to anti-Semitism, QAnon, Pizzagate, fucking kidnapping little baby puppies, whatever you can think of, right? Clubbing baby seals. I'm surprised you didn't throw that one in there. All them dirty baby seal clubbers believe in this shit too, you fuckers. I'm surprised you didn't mention that, Brian. You're full of shit, dude. And you're full of shit is obvious to see. You're up to your eyes in shit, as are all of you journalists who are discussing these things. 90% of these topics out here, you journalists suck at your jobs. And because you suck at your jobs, you write articles attempting to disprove conspiracy theories, and what you end up doing is giving people more ammo to believe that it's true. And you, Brian, are helping this cabal of elites cover it all up. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think the elites give a fuck who you are, Brian. I don't think you're important, Brian. I don't think you have enough monies for anybody to give a fuck about you, Brian. But other people think that you are a part of this, okay? I don't think you are. I think you just suck at your job and you needed to get a new job. But other people are going to assume that you are a part of this. And because you write these crap articles that are wrong, that have incorrect information, that are incorrectly and without evidence connecting these theories to all these horrible movements, and you're trying so hard to request censorship of people who are having the conversation and shame them to not having the conversation anymore. And because you're all copying each other all over the internet, all you journalists keep plagiarizing each other. What are people supposed to think? What would you fucking think, Brian? That's all I got to say. So that's my reason for this. That's my what I think the important takeaway is of this whole conspiracy theory is I can't find evidence that it's actually true. Any evidence, let alone proof. I can't find evidence that's true. I can find evidence of where certain ideas in the conspiracy theory come from. And I could present them to you and say, well, this might be how the conspiracy theory came from. But ultimately, that means that the conspiracy theory isn't true. It came from these different areas, right? But I have no evidence that it's true. Just evidence of where these ideas might have came from and gotten mishmashed together into this amalgamation, this fucking Frankenstein-ass conspiracy theory. You know, I can show you the evolution of this conspiracy theory. And I did all that. But when it comes to the people who are disproving this conspiracy theory, they do such a piss-poor job of doing so. And in themselves are a bunch of fucking liars and plagiarizers and buttheads. Little fucking butt wipes, Brian, you butt wipe. I'm going to call you butt wipe Brian now every time I read your article because you piss me off. That, you know, it ignites the flames more. People believe in it more because of your sucky-ass article. So, Brian, tisk tisk, as my girlfriend would say. Tisk tisk, Brian. Don't be such a douche. So, anyways, that wraps it up for my adrenochrome conspiracy theory video. I didn't realize, I didn't think I would go this long on a conspiracy theory video about adrenochrome. I'm surprised that I didn't get my shit shut down after all the reading that I did about the actual censorship that happens on this topic and Cutie Pie's interesting phenomenon that happened there while you were watching my stream. I'm surprised that I'm still streaming, that I didn't get shut off Twitch or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, pretty crazy. But in any case, we got through it. And hopefully this video still stays on YouTube after I post it up. And you guys can check it out. And I did want to mention, I did have information for another very closely related conspiracy theory called the Red Shoe Club that I didn't know was a thing. But we're going to go over that on a later date because I'm hungry, I'm burping, I'm coughing up on every breath of air I take. It makes me want to cough. And I need to take a piss and my baby needs to go to Hobby Lobby and get herself some yarn. So she's watching to the end like an amazing girlfriend just to support me, which is so cool. But I want to end this stream so she can get her ass to her cute little butt to Hobby Lobby and go pick up her yarn, and because they got a yarn sale. So anyways, I'm going to go over the Red Shoe Club on a later date. That'll be another conspiracy theory, probably another one that's a little bit controversial. But that sums it up for my Adrenochrome conspiracy theory video. And that was a lot of fun. I had a blast bitching and moaning about Brian and Caleb. That was a lot of fun. So it was fun to go through this information and try to parcel it all out. Hopefully you guys stick around for the end of the video. It was a long video. There's a couple dull moments in there when next time I have a big ass study like that, Mr. Hoffer study, I need to just highlight the points that are important or make a note on a piece of paper. I just started this 2 months ago. I'm still learning, so fucking sue me. I will get better though. Next time we do something like this, I will make notes on paper of what I need to read to get my point across, right? So in any case, I appreciate anybody who stuck around for sticking around. I think Cutie Pie, you're the only one that did stuck around, but I appreciate you, Cutie Pie, for that. Anybody else who did come in and tune in live, thank you so much. I appreciate you watching, and I hope you had some fun watching. And anybody who sees this video on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found some good information. If so, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps the channel out, and I will always take your help on that. So I appreciate your help. Thank you. Tomorrow will be my last stream for the week. It is Film Buff Fridays, and we're going to do a deep dive into camera angles. We're continuing to go through the 8 elements of film theory. Camera angles is number 4, I think, 3 or 4. So we're almost halfway through the film theory aspect of that, and then I take a break for the weekend. If you like conspiracy theory content and want to see more, check out my conspiracy theory playlist, Conspiracy Theory Thursdays, on my YouTube channel, and tune in for next week. Next week will be conspiracy theories. No. Next week will be the smiley face murder mystery. I'm excited about that one because I like creepy shit, and that one's pretty fucking creepy. So that'll be next Thursday's conspiracy theory. So until then, you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much, and hopefully I will see you next time. Peace.